Dennis Mcintee.
It was about 10 years ago. I spent the first part of my career in marriage and family therapy. And about 10 years ago, I had a friend call me, owned a couple communities up in Indiana, and he said, Dennis, I want you to come up and just spend a day with the team. Spend a day with this team, talk to them, see if you can help them. And so I went up, flew up, and I remember that night coming home, and I called my wife on the phone, and I said, Lisa, I think I just found a group of people that I want to spend the rest of my life serving. I have realized over the last 10 years that what you do is a thankless job. Nobody got into this business to make a ton of money. I mean, we want to all, do better, have great careers, but at the end of the day, we got in here because we care for people, because we want to serve residents, families. We want to be a blessing, right? Am I talking to the right crowd? Yeah? And so I just wanted to start off today by just telling you, if nobody's told you thank you lately, I just want to tell you thank you. Thank you for serving residents. Thank you for serving families. And thank you for giving your life. And I've just given the rest of my life to serve people exactly like you. So thank you. Would it be okay today if this doesn't become a talking head? Would it be okay today if I don't use a lot of PowerPoint? Are you okay with that? Are you sure? Because I can kill you with PowerPoint. I know how to do it, okay? I can just ram about 5,000 slides down your throat, and we can do that, all right? I know how to do that. But what I thought would be super helpful would be to just have a dialogue today about change, because that's one thing you're going to have to continue to navigate through. The constant today is change. And the regulations that we have today, guess what? Next year, you're going to go a whole new set of them. And the year after that, guess what happens? You're going to get a whole, right? And so it's like, how do we navigate through change? And I want to show you some of the roadblocks. Now, in our curriculum, we've got about 65 frameworks. Did everybody get on the app this worksheet? So I just gave Mindy, I said, let me give you, and then I want us to have just some facilitated dialogue. Because listen, that's how people learn best. That's how adults learn best, is that we have a big concept, like a big idea. We have a great question about that idea. We have a great dialogue about that idea, and then we come up with action plans, which means, watch this. That's how you train your teams. If you're taking notes, this is a writer-downer. Telling is not training. Telling is not training. If you're taking notes, that's a writer-downer. Telling is not training. And many times we go, well, I told them, right? How many times do I have to tell them? Telling is not training. So does that sound good today? Is that if we just make this more of a facilitated dialogue instead of a talking head? Because I've heard this guy speak before, and sometimes I get bored with him speaking, okay? So is that all right? Awesome. So I want to just walk through, in the beginning today, talking about a ladder. And I like to call this the drama ladder. Do you know all of your barriers in your communities, in your buildings, with your teams, drama is at the center of it? Every time that you don't hit a goal, there's drama. Every time you don't have a great outcome, there's drama. Have you ever realized that, like, when you have success and you have a great outcome, there is no story, right? No story. It's like, hey, did you get that done? Yeah, we crushed it. We got it done. We hit the deadline. Yeah, we got that finished. But when there's not a great outcome, you go, hey, did that happen? Well, blah, 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 right? Is anybody here tired of all the excuses? Okay, 3 of us. Some people never raise your hand no matter what I say, right? Exactly. I've been exactly where you are. I totally understand. So I want to share with you today how to bust through all of the excuses. Because at the center of every outcome that doesn't happen correctly or wonderfully, drama is at the center. Drama is your enemy. And so what I've realized is that it's kind of like a ladder. There are different rungs on the ladder. People go up and up and up the ladder. But I want to show you today, how do you take people down the ladder? See how there's like 2 rungs there at the bottom? or at the backside. So I want to talk about the backside of the ladder, because at the end of the day, I can't control people. I can't control what people do. You know, you are ridiculously in charge of you, and I'm ridiculously in charge of me. Your team is ridiculously in charge of themselves. So I can't really control if people go up and down, up the ladder, but what I can do is I can get some strategies to help people go down the ladder. Unfortunately, this is how some communities are. They have no backside. It's just up and up the drama ladder. You ever seen this? Right? They just keep going up, and unfortunately, they have no way to de-escalate the drama. And then it gets even worse, because there are some places where they just put a rope on the ladder, so they can just make it higher and higher. Have you seen that before? Yeah, it's like it's even more creative. And then some people think it's really funny just to push other people's buttons. Here I am, like just jumping up the drama ladder, higher and higher and higher we go. And the challenge is sometimes is that as leaders, we're focused on the wrong thing. Instead of helping people go down the drama ladder, we're focused on, you know, the footing of the ladder. So I want to talk about how do you de-escalate that drama. And now here it gets even crazier, because some people in your community, like you might have a drama-free zone in your community there in your building, but don't worry, because some people have their own portable ladder, and they just bring their drama right there. Here I come, right? I come and I'm bringing my ladder, bringing my drama, and then it gets even crazy, because I've seen some communities where it's so common, they just put the drama on wheels, right? They just wheel it into different offices from here to there, just taking the drama everywhere. And then here, this is even crazier, because watch this, is that as people go up the ladder and then we show them how to go down the ladder, some employees go, hey, it's not a problem. They just created this little contraption so that even after we do the training, I can still go up the ladder. Not a problem. Yeah, up and up. And then some creative people thought, you know what, we're not going up drama fast enough. So let's create the drama escalator, because we can do it a lot faster, a lot quicker. And so then pretty soon, this is what our communities and our buildings, they started to look like. And so I just want to encourage us today to stop the madness. Stop the madness, because unfortunately, this is what our buildings sometimes look like. Does anybody want to work at a place like this? No? Okay, so let's talk about how to be drama-free. Is it all right if I use the board, give a couple concepts, and then we'll have a discussion? Would we say that we're all about creating great outcomes? Yes or no? Yes? Yes or no? Yep, we are, okay? We're all about creating great outcomes. So here's the deal. Behavior is what drives outcomes. Behavior drives outcomes. Listen, if you're taking notes, this is a writer-downer. Nothing changes until behavior changes. Nothing changes until behavior changes. Which means I can trace all of my outcomes back to my behavior. It's almost like this. And so I've gone through this process where I've lost over 70 pounds. And you know what I've realized is that this is not fat right here. This is just a behavior. Come on, right? Isn't that true? It's a behavior. See, listen, I can tell you how to gain weight. I am an expert at it. I know how to do it. See, this is just behavior. Now, how many times does this happen? Is that in the morning, we get up in the morning and we step on the scale and then we're mad, we're pissed off. Has anybody been there? Right? Okay, listen, honesty creates freedom. Okay? Nothing starts to improve until you just tell the truth. Okay? Now, if you're writing notes, that's a good one. Nothing changes until you just start to tell the truth. So I remember a couple weeks ago is when I stepped on the scale and then I was mad. And then it got even worse, because then I started complaining to my wife. And then she looked at me and she says, you idiot. She goes, you're the one who ate the ice cream last night, right? The scale is just a reflection of my behavior. That's all it is, right? So this is not really fat. This is just behavior. And so if I don't want this, what do I have to do? I got to change behavior. So I know many of us in this room, you're probably sitting there going, hey, I got into this gig to really serve residents and be a blessing to families, and all of a sudden I've got this team and I've got these people. And if you're in leadership, how many people here are leading a team? Let me see. Okay, that's about everybody. I promise when you raise your hand never to make fun of you, okay? Never, okay? All right, so listen, if you are in leadership, it is a behavioral change game. That's what it's about. It's about changing behavior. Because if you're not having the right outcomes, you got to step back and look at behavior. See, I tell people all the time, I never ever fail. I just produce results. That's it. I just produce results. And if I want different results, what do I have to do? Change behavior, right? So this happened a while back ago. I remember I sent an email to somebody and I got no response. And then the next day I sent another email and I got no response. And the third day I sent another email and then I got no response. And then I was pissed off. Anybody ever been there? Does that happen in Georgia sometimes? It happens at Iowa Healthcare Association, but I didn't know if it happened at Georgia, okay? But here's where it got even crazier, because by the third day, I was pissed off and I was angry, and then I thought, I'm going to send them another email, by golly. Who is the idiot in this scenario, right? Watch this. I do a behavior, I send an email, I get no results. So if I want a different result, if I want a different outcome, what do I have to do? I got to change behavior. So listen, with our teams, if we want different outcomes, we've got to do different behaviors. We can't sit and complain about our teams. We can't play the ostrich. That's a favorite little game that leaders sometimes play. You know what that's like when you play the ostrich? You know, you stick your head in the sand. It's like, as long as I don't see it, it's not there. You know, it's like crazy when I had one administrator tell me, it's like, well, Dennis, we got no drama here. I got a no drama policy. I said, oh, that's really great. That's really great. How many people here you think you just need another policy? What do you think, huh? What do you think? Let's just do another regulation. What do you think? Does that sound good? We need some more regulations. It doesn't change behavior, does it? Have you realized that? And unfortunately, and there's no state, are there any state surveyors here today? Okay, listen, I'm not saying we shouldn't have regulations. I'm not saying we shouldn't have policies. But many times, like, you know, they come in, and it's almost like this. It's like, here's a policy here. You go, oh, yes, the policy. Thank you so much. Right? Just because we have a policy doesn't mean behavior changes. So what you can't do is you can't play the ostrich. Stick your head in the sand, pretend it's not there. You walk around and say, well, we don't have any drama. Well, it's no, because you just don't see it, but it's there. And that's your enemy. And what you can't do is you can't complain about what you permit. If you're taking notes, that's a great writer-downer. You can never complain about what you permit. So I was talking to my wife a couple weeks ago, and I remember we're at the dinner table, and I said, you know, Lisa, I said, I got these communities up in Seattle that we're working with, and I just started complaining about them. And then I said, you know, there's this CCRC in Harrisonburg, Virginia that we're working with, started complaining about them. And I said, you know, then there's this long-term care client up in Boston, started complaining. And she goes, Dennis, she said, stop. She goes, what's the common denominator in these three stories? And I was like, common denominator, they're like three different parts of the country. I go, one's assisted living, a couple of them are long-term care. She goes, you! She says, you idiot, you're the common denominator. Because the truth of it is that I chose to work with them. And I can never complain about what I permit. And so the first part of the day, I want to talk about some skills that we can personally have so that we don't exacerbate the drama. Because the truth of it is, we teach what we know, but we produce who we are. If you're taking notes, that's a writer-downer. You teach what you know, but you produce who you are. So if there is drama in my team, there's drama in my community, if there's maybe not the results that I want to see, guess where I have to first look? I first got to look here. Because you know the best way to really know who Dennis is? Truly the best way to know who Dennis is to come meet my kids. Because I teach my kids what I know, but guess what? I produce who I am. And I don't know about you, but if I were to kick the person most responsible for my problems, I wouldn't be able to sit down for a week. Does anybody ever feel that way? Right? That's the truth. The great news is that I've created my life. I've created this team. That's the best news, because if I'm not happy with it, guess what I can do? I can recreate it. I can recreate my life. That's some of the best news. Okay, got it. It's like I was at one time 260 pounds. I can just complain and be mad about it and mad at myself, but realize, you know what? My behavior got me here, and that's great news, because guess what? My behavior can get me out of there. And that's true for all of us. You behave your way into this situation. And so if I want a different situation with my team, I first got to look at me. Because I teach what I know, but I produce who I am. So I'm going to show you some things that leaders do that exacerbate the drama a little bit. And would that be helpful to know? Because they're kind of fatal flaws that people have that I don't want you to fall into. See, like I said before, everywhere I go, there I am. That's my big problem. That's my big problem. Everywhere I go, there I am. Do you guys feel the same way, right? Watch this. I can't kick the dog and yell at the kids and scream at my wife and come to the community being Mr. Happy. Right? I can't be disorganized at home, my closet's a mess, my garage a mess, and then come into the building going, hey, I'm Mr. Organized. So some of the techniques and the tips that I give you today, you're going to ask me, now, Dennis, are you talking about personally or professionally? And I just say yes. Yes. Because if you get better personally, you're going to get better professionally. And when you get better professionally, you're going to get better personally. Because what you do flows out of who you are. What you do flows out of who you are. Now, I understand in a group like this, there are some people here that we're just here to get our credits and keep our license. Come on. I just keynoted at Ohio Healthcare Association to about 800 people, right? That's the truth. And other of us are here, it's like, man, I'm really here to get better. I'm really here to learn. And so you're the kind of people that I want to talk to. The people that really, really want to get better. So the first part of the day, I want to talk about you as a leader and how do you navigate through change and how do you facilitate change. And then I want to talk about some coaching skills that you can use with your team. So this is the part of the program where I'm going to ask everybody to stand in just a minute. And I'm going to ask you to find 2 other people, so get in groups of triads. And I want to know, what do we need to discuss today as a group so that when you walk out of that room at 12, we're going to finish before 12:45. Is that all right? Come on, right? Let's finish before 12:45 and go hit the beach or something, right? That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, we'll go get margaritas and we'll hit the beach. That's what I'm talking about, okay? So, but by time we're finished, what needs to happen for you so that you go, man, this was totally a great morning. This was totally the best investment of my time. Because some of you here, you could be listening to the fire marshal. I'm glad you're with me, okay? I'm glad we're together, all right? But I want to know, what do we need to talk about? What's a challenge? What's a roadblock? What's an issue that we need to discuss? Now, here's how the training's going to go. I'm going to have you stand up. I'm going to have you talk amongst yourselves. And then this is what I'm going to do. When I need to get your attention, I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to scream. No fuss, no muss. I'm simply going to do this. And when I do this and you see my hands raised, you're just going to stop talking and you're going to raise your hands like this. Okay? And that's how we're going to get control of the room very, very quickly and so that we can get a lot done in a short amount of time. Okay? I've got about 40 hours of training I'm going to try to cram in 3 hours. Is that okay? I want to give you everything that I can. So let's just practice real quick. So just talk amongst yourselves real quick. Just introduce yourself to the person next to you. Gray? Remember my rule. See my hands? Okay, see how fast that went? That's what we're going to do. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. As you stand up, everybody stand up. Find 2 people that you haven't met yet. And I want you to, here's the question I want you to discuss. What's the thing that we need to cover today so it's totally worth your time? Ready, set, go. All right, awesome. See how quick that was? Thank you so much. Okay, so this side of the room right now, what is one thing we need to discuss? Somebody pop up. Tell me, what do we need to cover by 11:30 so it's totally worth your time? What do we need to cover When we deal with leadership, what do we need to cover today so you go, man, that was totally worth your time being here? What's that? Converting negative staff. Would that be helpful? Or is everybody just okay with the negativity? Come on. No? All right, so converting negative staff. What else? Yes? Yeah. The best way to deal with some of the culture of the employees? Oh my gosh, yes, thank you. Okay, so dealing with the culture of the employees. You just totally set me up, thank you. And I didn't even pay you for that, thanks. Awesome. Dealing with the culture of the employees. What's one more from the side? Yes?
How to get staff to take ownership.
Staff to take ownership. Would that be helpful to learn how do we get staff to take ownership? Awesome. Yep, let's do that. What about this? Yes, ma'am? How to recognize the drama. Yep, that's very helpful. How to recognize the drama. Yep. And what's another one from this side of the room? Anything else from this side of the room? What do we need to cover? Just these 4 things. Now watch this. Watch this. This is the part of the program where you set the agenda. So nobody in this room can walk out of here going, that totally sucked. We didn't cover anything that was helpful. Right? So you can't. So this is the part of the program where you get to say, hey, this is what we need to cover. Because I don't think you need me to just be a talking head. Is that all right? See, because if this just becomes, watch this, if this just becomes a talking head, then I think I'll just send you everybody a copy of my book and just read my book and drama-free teams in healthcare and just call it a day, right? So I just don't want to do that. I really want to kind of itch where it's scratching. So if we covered those four concepts, we would say that's helpful. Is that what we say? Okay, perfect. Let's do that. So right here, we're back to behavior and outcomes. So here's the barrier, and I draw it in the form of a triangle because I like to think of it as the Bermuda Triangle. What happens in the Bermuda Triangle? Die, right? Ships go in, we don't know where they go, right? Planes go in. So there is a triangle that people fall into called the drama triangle. Some people fall into this drama triangle and we lose them forever. And there are 3 parts that people choose to play. Everybody say play. Play, okay? That's the key word. They choose to play. You choose to play this way. So here's one that people tend to choose starts with a V. It's called victim. People choose to play the victim. Well, there's nothing I can do. It is how it is. Right? Things will never change around here. So I was doing this DON conference in Florida, and so talking to about 30 DONs, and it was such a bummer when I made this one comment. One lady came to me. She says, "Well, Dennis, at my community, it's like things will never change around here." And I said, "Wow." I said, "How long have you worked there?" She goes, 20 years. And I said, "Nancy," I said, "how long have you felt like this?" She goes, "At least 10. And I thought, wow. She thought she was telling me all about her communities and her team, but you know what she was really telling me all about? About herself. Because I thought, what kind of person would give your life to a place that you thought would never, ever change? Right? And if you're not careful, here's what happens in healthcare, is that we end up, we quit but stay. You know what I'm talking about, quit but stay? You know, it's like they quit 10 years ago, but they're still there getting a paycheck, right? They quit but stayed. And here's a great analogy to kind of understand. So my wife and I, on my bucket list was I wanted to go to the Masters. Has anybody been to the Masters? Okay, so some of us have been. It was on my bucket list. And I got an email from a friend saying, "Hey, Dennis, I got 2 tickets for Friday. Do you want them?" I'm like, heck yeah. I'm drove from Greenville, South Carolina to Augusta all day long. I said, heck yeah, I'm doing it. But here's what I noticed. Golf is such a crazy sport, right? Because golf is the only sport where people do an amazing shot. They do an amazing thing, and here's what happens. Right? It's not like football. It's like college football, right? When I'm at Death Valley in Clemson, and it's like going nuts, 80,000 people, right? No. It's like, so let's just practice for a minute. Okay, pretend we're all at the Masters, and somebody hits a great shot. What do? No. We do this, right? Now, so we do this. Now, let's just amp it up a little bit more. Pretend maybe like we're not at the Masters, we're at like, a web.com event. So somebody hits a good shot, we just amp it up a little bit more, right? Right, and now let's just amp it up a little bit more. Somebody hits a great shot, amp it up even more. Okay, now pretend we're watching Clemson Tigers beat Georgia Tech. No, I shouldn't say it here. Okay, but okay, we're watching Georgia Tech beat Clemson, right? And how do we act? Go Dogs. There's always one in every crowd. Oh my gosh, it's out of control quick. Okay, but watch this. That's what you do with your team. It starts off like this, then it goes like this. And you continue to enroll them, and you enroll them, and you enroll them, and you enroll them, so that the applause continues to get louder. And here's the point. Remember I said people play the victim? Life is a stage. Do you realize that your community is a stage? Your community is a stage. When you show up to work, it is just like you're on stage. And here's what I've realized as leaders. As leaders, guess what? The higher we go, the less privileges we have. The truth of it is that if you're in leadership, you don't get the privilege of having a bad day. And watch this. Complaints go up, they don't go down. And when we turn and we complain to our team, your team has nothing, they can't do anything about it, right? Gripes go up. Does anybody remember the movie Private Ryan? Saving Private Ryan? Yeah, what was so cool about that movie was that these guys had to go find this guy Ryan, right? So as they're trying to find this guy Ryan, some of the guys are getting killed in the unit. And everybody is pissed off, right? Everybody is angry. But the captain never complains. And I remember they asked him as they were walking along, they says, well, Captain, what do you think about this? What do you think about this mission? And he says, oh, it's a fine mission. He says, it's a mission that we should give our lives for. And went on and on and on about the mission. And they wanted to know, it's like, Captain, why don't you ever complain? And he made the statement, he said, grapes go up. He says, you complain to me. He says, I complain to the major complains to the colonel complains to the general complains to the president. But it's like complaints go up, they don't go down. Gripes go up, they don't go down. Make sense? But here's what happens is that if we choose to play the victim, another one that we could choose to play that I see sometimes is we play the blamer. We blame other people. We blame circumstances. We blame outside forces. And when you choose to blame, you take no responsibility. And the truth of it is people tend to up other people's responsibility and lower their own responsibility. And they end up falling into this victimhood. Now, victim blamer, it comes out of the thinking that you have choice poverty. You believe there's nothing we can do. So my daughter, the best way to explain it is my daughter's first job, she's 19 years old today, but her first job was Chick-fil-A. What I love about Georgia, it's the home of Chick-fil-A. And I remember when she first got her job, it was a couple weeks into her job, I came to the kitchen, and she was 16 at the time. I says, well, she had a pouty look on her face, and I said, Melissa, what's wrong? She goes, I have to go work. Anybody got teenage daughters? Right? That's how they act, right? I'm going to write a book called The Drama-Free Teen. How many people would buy that book? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's coming. right? 2 hands in the back, exactly. Okay, so I came and she, well, I have to go to work. I said, Melissa, you don't have to go to work. No, I have to go to work. I said, come, we got to sit down. We have to talk for 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. She goes, what? I go, listen, Melissa, you don't have to go to work. She goes, no, I have to. I says, you don't. I says, listen, in fact, I'll take it another step further. You don't ever have to go back to Chick-fil-A ever again. She goes, really? I go, yeah, not at all. I said, in fact, you don't ever have to work another day the rest of your life, ever. She goes, really? I go, yeah, not at all. I said, now, Melissa, Chick-fil-A will probably stop paying you, right? Chick-fil-A, you probably won't have a job at Chick-fil-A, but you don't have to go to work. Now watch this. When I say I have to, who's in control of me? Somebody else, like an outside force. And listen, I'm going to tell you today, there's no IRS officials in the room, I don't think. I'm going to tell you today, you don't have to pay your taxes. Nobody in this room has to pay their taxes. Now, you might go to jail in 10 years, okay? But you don't have to pay your taxes. Now watch this. This one little phrase, I choose to. When I show up, I choose to. Who's in control of me? I'm in control of me. Now, here's how somebody asked, how do you recognize the drama? Would that be helpful to know how you recognize the drama? Right? Yeah. Here's how you recognize the drama. The principle is that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, which means that if it comes out your mouth, it's first inside of your heart. So here's how you find drama. Here's how you know drama, is you listen to what people say. Because once you understand the culture, once you understand the language, it tells you all about culture. So what I want to share with you probably towards the end of the day is to give you some new language, because you're right, you might never be able to take all of the drama, because people, they have a drama ladder, right? Little portable one. You can kick it all out of your community, but here I come. Got my portable ladder, my drama ladder. I'm going to set it up right here in your office, going to walk right up it with you. I can't maybe stop that, but what I can do to mitigate it is to give my team some different language, okay? So here's where you hear it, because out of the mouth tells me what's going on the inside of here. So when I say things like, I have to, all of a sudden, I believe I have no choice. Here's another one that people say, well, she just makes me angry. You ever do that? You ever hear that? Right? He just makes me angry. So can you play a game with me? Okay, this is my angry stick. Okay, so when you do this, I get angry. Okay? All right, so just go. Ah! 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 Who's in charge of me? Absolutely, Pamela. Pamela, stand up. You're in charge of me, right? Yeah. I say, Pamela makes me angry. And also, watch this. I just gave Pamela all my power. And now she's in control of me. All drama comes from the belief that you have choice poverty. You believe there's nothing you can do. Now, some of us here are in middle management where we've got a boss and we got people under us, and we've got that squeeze from a boss on top and residents from the side and families from the side and a team. Anybody ever feel like that monkey in the middle a little bit? Right? And then we go, oh, there's just nothing I can do. Listen, there's always something you can do. You have to look, what else can I do? What else? I might not be able to think about it right now, but if I keep asking the question, I'll keep getting an answer. What else can I do? What else can I do? Because watch this, I do a behavior, it gives me an outcome. And if I don't like my outcomes, what do? Change my behavior. So I can get the outcomes I want if I just find a different behavior. But here's what I've learned. I've had the privilege of living in Germany for 2 years and Northwest Poland for 6 years. And here's what I've realized. Language defines culture. Anybody here speak German? Okay, German is a super simple, easy language to understand. The only hard part about German is that there are about 5, 10, 30,000 rules, like a lot of rules. But here's what's awesome about German is that once you know the rule, you know how many deviations there are to a rule? 0. No deviations whatsoever. I mean, they have a rule for everything, for like, how do you queue up for the bus? If you don't queue up right, they start yelling at you. But in the language, there is no deviation to any of the rules. It's why some of the greatest engineers come out of Germany, right? How does some of the precise machinery comes out of Germany? I moved 2 hours to northwest Poland, and I learned Polish. You know how many rules there are in the Polish language? Probably twice as many as there are in German. But here's what's interesting. You know how many variations and exceptions there are? There's probably 10 exceptions to every rule. That's exactly how the Polish people are. I remember they say, okay, well, this is how you do it, but that's not how we really do it. That's how they say you do it, but here's 5 other ways to kind of go around that law and go do this. But it's why some of the greatest creatives, the artists, and the composers come out of Poland. That's why they're very creative. So once you know language, it defines culture. So as you're creating culture, the first thing that you work on is you work on language. You create language for people. And once you hear language that's not acceptable, you have to address it. If you're writing notes, write this down. Whatever you don't address, you endorse. Whatever you don't address, you endorse. So when people walk around, they say, well, I have to. Well, my boss says I have to. Listen, if you're in middle management, here's a fatal flaw that middle managers make, is that we go down to our teams and we go say, well, Pamela, we have to because the boss says I have to. Well, if I ever tell Pamela that the boss says I have to, you know what Pamela does the next time the boss comes? I'm going to go see the boss. I just told Pamela that I have no authority. Now listen, I might disagree with my boss. I might not think that's a good idea. I'll have that conversation with my boss, but when I come to Pamela, it's like, this is what I decided. Even though in my head I'm going, holy cow, I don't think this is going to work. Right? But when I do stuff like this, I actually abdicate my leadership. So I listen for language. Things like, I have to. You don't have to. Things like, they make me. See, because if you can create the right language, it creates the right culture. And everything determines the culture. Everything that you do flows out of the culture. It's sort of like this. I was raised in Sarasota, Florida. So I was raised about 10 minutes from the Tropicana plant. And so I remember growing up, eating grapefruit, eating oranges. And when I was in Ohio, last month I was really frustrated with Ohio. Because I turned to Kathy Chapman and I was like, Kathy, why don't you have any oranges here in Ohio? This is crazy. I like some oranges. I want me some oranges. And she kind of looked at me funny. I says, well, imagine if I brought some orange seeds to Columbus, Ohio, and I planted orange seeds in Columbus. Would I ever get orange trees? Now, I mean, they might get this big, right? But they'd never grow. Why? Right, too cold. They're not the right atmosphere, not the right culture. So here's what happens. You can have the seeds of a great community. You can be in the right market, be the only game. You can have all of these things going for you, okay? But if you don't create the right culture, guess what? Those seeds don't grow. So if you're not careful, part of your enemy is this victimhood. People feel like, oh, there's nothing I can do. And then we blame. So this is my weight loss journey right here. This right here is my weight loss journey. I was classic at playing the victim. I used to blame my weight loss or my weight gain on my wife. I was crazy. She likes to cook, I like to eat. It's like awesome. We're like match made in heaven. And then we went through this process where I felt like we were always giving birth. Now, my wife always hates when I say we, because she's like, who's we? But, we're covenant, we're together. And so, I don't know, this is how it would happen, is that my wife would get pregnant and she would eat. So, guys, guess what I would do? Eat. Heck yeah, it was like the best 9 months of my life. It was awesome, right? It's like free reign on food. So she would eat, I would eat, and then she would give birth. And if you ever get a chance to meet her, she really is the prettiest lady in America. And she would give birth, and literally within a month, she'd be like, whew, and I'd be like this. Then 18 months later, we got pregnant again. She would eat, I would eat, she would give birth. 6 weeks later, I'd be like this. And I thought, man, I just never had a chance to have a baby. If I could have had a baby, this would have fixed it all, right? That's what I always kind of thought. But then we finally, we bought a television, and then we stopped getting pregnant. So I fixed that, okay? So I found out the secret to pregnancy was watch television, okay? But here's what I had to really sit down and just be honest with myself and just realize that, you know what? I never ate a donut accidentally. right? It's like I saw the donut, I coveted the donut, I lusted after the donut, I ate a whole box of donuts, right? My favorite sign was hot now. You know what I'm talking about? Hot now. I love me some Krispy Kremes. But I realized it's like, you know what? No, it's like I never ate this donut accidentally. This is just behavior. But I had to like step out and just like get some awareness and go, you know what? I got to just tell the truth. Nothing changes until you just start to tell the truth. Nothing changes in your life until you just start to tell the truth. It is the power of the 12-step programs. Part of the power of the 12-step programs is you start off and you stand up and you say, hi, my name is Dennis and I'm an alcoholic. And you say, hi, Dennis. Right, yeah. But the first step is like, hey, this is a problem. I tell the truth. And your brain, listen, your brain never goes to work on a solution until you just start to tell the truth. You go, this is a problem. Then your brain starts to work on it. So I played the victim, and then I blamed my wife. Now, leaders at times, we play the victim, we blame, but here's what happens in long-term care many times with us. The other part of the triangle is that people choose to play a rescuer. A rescuer where I step in and work on your job more than you're willing to work on it yourself. Right? When I step in and work and help you on your life more than you're really willing to work on it themselves. Now, watch this. When we rescue, guess what we actually create? Because guess what a victim loves more than anything else? A rescuer. Heck yeah. The best way to describe this is when we first got married, we lived in Sarasota, Florida. Now, anybody here ever been to Sarasota? Okay, so quite a few of us have. Awesome. So if you go back to Sarasota, you can go to 2401 8th Street, just between Lime and Shade. Okay, right on 8th Street, 2401 8th Street, apartment number 6. In this particular apartment, it had a magic bathroom floor. No joke, magic bathroom. It was awesome. I have never seen an apartment like this ever before. I want to go back and just check it out. But here's how it would work when we first got married, is that I would get up in the morning and I'd take my PJs, get ready for work, and I'd take off my PJs, and I'd just whip them in the corner of the bathroom, get ready for work, and I would just go to work. Leave just my PJs on the floor. You are not going to believe this. Just trust me, this really happened. I would come home at 5:30 from work, and I would walk into the bathroom, and guess what? No PJs. Awesome. It was magic, right? Magic. I don't know how it happened, right? I was whip my clothes in the corner, go to work, come home, totally no clothes. Worked for about a week, and then I got the bright idea. I wonder if it works with other stuff, right? Works with PJs, let's give this thing a try. So I started dumping stuff on the bathroom floor. It was awesome. Guess what? After about a month, my wife had a come to Jesus meeting with me. But here, I am going to guarantee you this. I have been married for 27 years, and I will guarantee you this. If my wife, for 27 years, was willing to pick up my stuff from the bathroom floor, guess what? I'd be willing to pick it up. I'd be willing to keep throwing it down. Because every rescuer, every victim loves a rescuer. And when we rescue people, we actually create victims. So there are some, now here's why this is so prevalent in our industry. I'm going to tell you because I've talked to you about 10,000 different times this year alone. And you are probably just like you are in Iowa, in Ohio, in Florida, in Massachusetts. You're kind of all the same. And I would say, as I get to know you, this is probably what I would say about you, is that, you know what I really love about you? Is I love that you have such big hearts and you really care. But you know what I'm really frustrated about you and what I really don't like about you? You just care way too much. You just got too big of hearts. Watch this. Every constraint in your life is in a strength overextended. Every constraint, every weakness that you have is in a strength overextended. And that's what happens, is that it's a strength, and we overextend it, and we actually end up hurting our teams. We actually end up hurting our people. And I'm going to show you some ways that we do that. Would that be helpful to show you some ways that that happens? How we actually create victims with our teams? So I'm working with a long-term care facility in Oakland, and I remember calling Mary Beth the other day, and she was really frustrated. And she was like, Dennis, I had to come in and I have to work on weekends. And I said, well, Mary Beth, tell me what you're doing. And she just went through this whole list of everything she's doing. She's like, I got to come in Saturday, I got to come in Sunday. Anybody ever feel that pain? Right? Yeah, I was like, I got to work all this, And I said, Mary Beth, I said, I think this is what's happening. I think your team gets together secretly on Monday, and they have this list of stuff. And then they say, you know what? There's this person on our team that works weekends. We're going to give all of this stuff right here, we're going to give it to the weekend shift. We're going to give it to the night shift. I said, Mary Beth, you're the weekend shift. And it's when we work on people's jobs harder than they're willing to work on it. And here's how it happens many times, is the fatal flaw of many managers is you doing the work of the person directly below you. Does that make sense? How many people have, we fell into that. And we just perpetuate this cycle. And when we rescue, we create victims. Victims turn into blamers. Now, here's how it happens all at once. Something happens, I don't know, like no call, no show. Has that ever happened? Hey, everybody just don't show up? Or you guys don't have that problem in Georgia, right? Oh, you have it in Georgia too? Okay. They have it once in a while in South Carolina. Okay? So no call, no show. Why do they never come in? Why don't they ever just call before, right? Oh, poor me. Why? Man, if they would just be more responsible. People today just aren't responsible. Isn't that the problem? They're not like our generation. Now I got to step in and do it all myself. And I've just played all three roles. Make sense? So they're at your table. Just everybody stand up. Take 2 minutes, and I want to know what's one big takeaway so far from today. So ready, everybody stand up, find a partner. Take 2 minutes, what's one big takeaway from today so far? Awesome, have a seat real quick. Have a seat. So can you repeat that? What's one big takeaway so far? Exactly. So watch. So here's part of how we rescue. Here's part of how. What's your name? Lee. Okay, great. So here's what happens. I go, here, Lee. I got a problem. Okay, great. And you go, yep. Exactly. And then Lee. And then I don't know how to do this. Right, and then Lee, I don't and I don't know how. But Lee, I don't know how to do this, and then Lee, and I don't know how. This is really big. Okay. Yeah. Right, and how many times does that happen, right? It's like they give us a problem. So, here's a great strategy. When somebody gives you a problem, Pamela, this is a problem, is learn to give it back. And here's the question. Hey, great, Dennis, what do you want to do about that problem you have? What do you want to do about that problem you have? What do you want to do about that problem you have? See, here's part of the challenge that we have. Everybody in this room, the fact that you're sitting in this room, you're super smart, okay? I'm being honest. You guys are super smart, and here's the deal. Most problems, you know what to do, right? Right, you know how to solve them, right? And so I got this answer. So I'll never forget, Henry was running a community in New Hampshire, and Henry was really upset because he's like, Dennis, my team doesn't think at a very high level. Would anybody say you have that problem? Can you just think for a minute, right? Yeah, it's like they just don't think, Dennis. And so I said, well, Henry, let me come and let me sit down and just see how you lead and what happens. So Henry went through about half the day, and I said, Henry, we got to talk because I know exactly the problem. I said, Henry, the problem your team doesn't think at a high level is because you do all their thinking for them. You think for them. Because he came in, he says, hey, if you got a problem, I got an answer. You come see me. I'll tell you what to do. I know the answer. And when we think for our team, we actually rescue them. And I guarantee you, your team will let you think for them. They don't mind all day long. Because here's what happens. What's your name? Ross. What is it? Ross. Okay, so Ross. You tell me what to do, okay? It's like, well, Ross, I got this problem. You go, well, Dennis, go do this. Okay, so I go do it, and it doesn't work. What do I come back and tell you? Didn't work. I did what you told me to do. Ross, here's all the responsibility back, right? And I've just given Ross all of that responsibility. And see, watch this. I am on a mission to stop this adult-to-child conversations. Do you guys feel like you're tired of adult-to-child conversations? Right? It's like, golly. And I don't know if this happens in Georgia. It happened in Florida, is that, people act like children, so then the leaders... Oh, okay, it happens in Georgia too. We treat them like children. And then since we treat them like children, guess what? They act like children. And then because they act like children, what do? Stop the madness. Okay, and here's the deal. People tend to behave how you believe them to be. If you're taking notes, that's a writer downer. People tend to behave how you believe them to be. And I guarantee you, if you believe them to be children, guess what? They will absolutely behave like children. So that question, what do you want to do about that problem you have? It puts all of the responsibility back on your team. So we'll get into some more, but what did you guys come up with? What was the big takeaway? Spencer? Stop rescuing people. Would it be helpful to know how to stop rescuing people? One way is to never take monkeys. You always continue to give the monkeys back, right? They ask you, you just give it back. You just give it back. You just give it back. There's a reason. I'm going to get ahead of myself. What did you guys come up with? What was a big takeaway for you guys?
How to stop treating children like children.
How to stop treating children like children? If we keep telling them what to do, they'll keep acting like children. So what did you guys come up with? Rescue. So would it be helpful to know how not to rescue? So the best way to do that would be for me to practice mind control. Would it be okay today if I controlled everybody's mind in the room? How many people here believe I can't control your mind? I want to see how tough a crowd this is. Okay, you don't believe? Good, awesome, I love a tough crowd. You don't believe? Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and just control everybody's mind, okay? So now you do what you do to kind of put a guard around your mind, okay? So whatever you do, you just put a guard, and I'll just, okay, so you do it, and let me kind of got to work up to it a little bit. Well, before I do that real quick, we're going to spend the afternoon on Amelia Island, and I'm curious, quick lunch survey. What did everybody have for lunch? Yes. No, what did everybody have for dinner last night? What did you have for dinner last night? So just tell the person next to you, what did you have for dinner? We'll take a quick survey. So just tell what you have. Got to tell the truth. Okay, tell them what you had. Got it. We'll get to mind control in just a minute. Okay, great. Everybody do that? All right, so how many, everybody share that with everybody? Okay, great. So here's the question. How many people here 10 minutes ago were thinking about dinner last night? Now, I cannot read your mind, but I absolutely can control your mind. How would I control your mind? How do I make you think about dinner? I didn't say it. What did I do? Is one thing I did. I asked a question. This is very, very important. Questions create open loops inside of people's brains that demand an answer. Now, watch this. You can choose not to answer my question, but your brain cannot ignore a question. Is it sunny or cloudy out today? Sunny or cloudy out today? You can sit there and you can say, well, I'm not going to answer it, but what did your brain immediately do? You went, well, I don't know. I haven't been outside. Well, let me look outside. Well, maybe, when are we going to take a break? Maybe we're going to take a break in a minute. I want to walk outside, find out what the weather, right? You immediately thought about the question. Questions create open loops inside of people's brains that demand an answer. The way that you control people's minds is by asking a question. You want your team to think at a higher level, you got to change the question. Here's when I know I have a fantastic question. I ask the question, and this is what people do. They go, that's awesome, because right then, you know what? You're thinking a thought you have never, ever thought before. Now, if you are always telling, people are not thinking. Now, and this is very hard for this group here, because the truth of it is that you have the answer. You know what to do. You don't get to sit in this room without going through some education to know this is how we're going to do this is how we fix this is how we solve this, right? But one of the hardest things that you'll ever learn to do is to not answer the question, but learn how to redirect with a question. Because your goal has got to be to train people's thinking. Now, okay, yeah, go ahead and ask it. And I just, yeah. Yeah.
Usually when you ask them other questions, you put different context. The person is already thinking of the answer they're going to give you while you're giving the question.
Yep.
The person asking you the whole question.
Awesome. So here's why. How do I deal with the person that's always thinking about the answer? That is awesome. Is it okay if we go there right now? Yeah, that would be helpful. How many people here in the room, you say, I have an imagination? Raise your hand if you have an imagination. Okay, this is part of the program where you use your imagination, because I do not get paid to draw, or I would totally starve. So use your imagination and tell me what that is. Oh, very close. This is the water line. Iceberg. Awesome. We have imaginations in Georgia. Thank you. Okay, so here's what's interesting. This is called the whole person concept. And I want to share this with you to answer your question. Okay? So here's what's interesting about an iceberg. 10% of the iceberg is above the water, 90% is below. I did Hawaii Healthcare Association, and what I realized when I was there this winter, it is just one gigantic mountain. The real stuff is all under the water. So here's what's interesting. The only thing that I can see about people above the water is their behavior. And remember, it's our behavior that's driving all of our outcomes. But it's the stuff underneath that is driving it. Underneath that is people have feelings. Underneath that, people have thinking. They think certain things. Underneath that, people have values and beliefs. And underneath that, they have core needs. Here's why you use questions. Do I know what you're feeling? No way. Do I know what you're thinking? No way. Do I know your values? Nope. Do I know your beliefs? Nope. Don't know any of that. The only way that I can get that is by using a question. It's the only way I get that. Now, all of the drama in your communities is the stuff underneath the iceberg. So what you want to do is you want to use questions to get people to give up what they think, what they feel, what they value. And here is a classic drama phrase. Now listen, here's where drama happens. All drama happens here at the back of the brainstem, where all the emotion is. And you want to use questions to snap people to frontal cortex, to snap them back to logic. So they go into drama, and here's the best way to think about it. Drama equals drugs. When people are in drama, it's just like they are on drugs. So I was working with an administrator in, I probably shouldn't say where, in Iowa. Let me say it there. It's just in Iowa, big place. But I remember I called Katie because she was going to bring in one of her department heads and have a crucial conversation. And just, just have an honest dialogue, so she brought her in. And a couple hours later, I called Katie and I said, Katie, how did it go? And on the other end of the line, this is what Katie said. She said, Dennis, I brought her in, and she threw down her hair. I was like, throw down. I was like, is this an Iowa term, throw down your hair? I was like, what? She goes, Dennis, as I started talking, she got so mad that she took off her, I didn't know she had a wig, she said. She took off her wig, threw it on the ground, bald-headed, screaming at me, stomping on her wig. I thought, holy cow, we can't make this stuff up, right? This is craziness. Yeah, but that's the great scenario, is that when you're in drama, you're on drugs. And so they're in the emotion, they don't see straight. And you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. I'm going to answer your question. I'm just taking a long way to do it, but I'm going to answer it in just a minute. Okay? You can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. Can a fish see water? But is it in water? That's what people are. People are in the bottle of their own behavior. And we want to use questions to snap them back, to turn back and look at their behavior. Because can I control anybody's behavior? No, I cannot control anybody's behavior.
So here's what happens is that you want to use questions, and here is a classic drama phrase. And I don't know if they say it in Georgia, but they say it in other places. Here's how it goes. Well, I don't know. Hear that one? You ever hear that one before? I don't know. Now, what do people typically do when they say, I don't know? They say they do nothing, right? So many times, here's what happens. They say, I don't know, and they actually know, right? They actually really know, but they say, I don't know. Watch it. I don't know is a drama phrase that people say out of emotion. Would it be helpful if I gave you 2 questions to combat I don't know? Would that be helpful? Now, before I give them to you, you're going to look at me like I'm an idiot. You're going to look at me and go, that'll never work. And I'm just telling you. Where's Steve? Steve was here. He's heard this. Steve used this. So find Steve from Ithaca because he's used this before. He can contest that this is correct. So here are 2 questions that you want to use when people say, I don't know. Ready? Here they are now. How many people will promise to use them even before you hear them? Okay, because you're going to look at me and go, that's never going to work, and I'm telling you it absolutely works. Here's the first question. You say, well, I don't know. You go, great. Suppose you did know. What's a possible answer? I am just telling you. I am telling you 75% of the time, they will give you an answer. But watch this. Suppose you didn't know. You're giving them the opportunity to step outside of their behavior and look back at themselves. Hey, suppose you did know. What's a possible answer? 75% of the time, this is what will happen. They will give you an answer. Now, the other part of the time, they go, well, I don't know, well, I don't know, well, I don't know, right? They're stuck there. You go, great. So then you got to take it to another level. So then I ask them, well, hey, who's the smartest person you know? And they look at you like you're an idiot. I go, no, just tell me your dad, your mom, your best friend, your sister, Mindy Rock, who's the smartest person you know? They go, oh, my dad. And I go, great. What would your dad do? And the other half of the time, they give you an answer. Now, I always want to zing them and say, well, I thought you didn't know. But don't do that, okay? That's not good leadership. But here's what you find, is I don't know is a form of victimhood. It's a form of being the child. Here's what they're saying. Will you please do my thinking for me, please? I don't want to think for myself. It's not very comfortable. So I've got an administrator in Arizona that she said, Dennis, when I started using this, it took about 6 months, but now nobody ever comes to me with I don't know. She says they never ever come to me with I don't know. Because you take people through that scenario 3 or 4 times, and people go, yeah, I don't want to have that hard. That's an uncomfortable conversation, right? And she says, my communication has sped up so fast because now people, they never say I don't know. But here's where we actually train this in our teams. We train I don't know inside of our teams. Does that answer the question? Okay, good. All right, so what was the big takeaway for you guys so far today? Okay, how many people would tell the truth and say, hey, please help me, I'm a rescuer? Okay, awesome. Okay, sometimes? Well, and sometimes it's easier to rescue. Right, it is easier to rescue. So to kind of show you how not to rescue, I need somebody who's willing to play a game with me. Who's willing to play a game? Raise your hand. Okay, here, what's your name? Lee, come on up here, Lee. Let's give Lee a hand. Lee's going to play a game. Okay, so Lee, come on up here. We're going to play a game real quick and kind of illustrate the point. Now, Lee, do you play cards? I do. You do? Okay, good. Poker, yes, great. Well, all right. No, spades, all right, great. So Lee, now, first of all, Lee, we haven't talked about this before, right? No money has changed hand between us, at least not yet. Right, not yet. It could, right? So I'm going to write something on this piece of paper, and you're not going to look at it, okay? Okay, so I'm going to write this on a piece of paper, and then you and I are going to play a game. Okay, perfect. Just hold on to that. Okay, so Lee, you said you played cards, right? So what I need you to do is I need you to give me 5 numbers between 1 and 10, and I don't care what they are. You just pick what you want to pick. So what 5 numbers? 8, 2, 4, 6, one more, and 10. Okay, so 8, 2, 4, 6, and 10. So out of 1 through 10, what's left, Lee, is 3. Huh? 5. 7, 9. Okay, great. Lee, you're doing a fantastic job. So out of 3, 1, 5, 7, and 9, pick 3 numbers. You choose. I don't care. Okay, so 3, 1, and 5. So out of 3, 1, and 5, pick 2 numbers you pick. Okay, so 1 and 5. And then out of 1 and 5, just pick 1. Okay, perfect. So what's left is 5. So in a deck of cards, how many suits are there? 4. So what are they? Spades and clubs, hearts and diamonds. Awesome. So out of spades, clubs, hearts, diamonds, pick 2 suits you choose. Okay, so spades and hearts. And out of spades and hearts, just pick 1 suit? Perfect. So what's left is 5 of hearts. Open a piece of paper. Share with us what it is. It's there. It's the 5 of hearts. I'll be here the rest of the afternoon, okay? I'll be pulling rabbits out of my hat. And how'd I do that, Lee? I don't know. How'd I do that? Okay, watch this. Who was in charge of the conversation? I was in charge of the conversation. Whose data was I using? No, I wasn't using my data. I was using her data. Now here's a couple principles. He who asks the question controls the conversation. He who asks the question controls the conversation. Have you ever asked a question and then been answered back with a question? Right? What is that? That's a subtle way to take control back of the conversation. Now, my son, who just recently graduated from Clemson, came home from spring break. What I love about college kids that come home from spring break is you can send them right back, right? It only lasts a week. Go on back to Clemson. But here's what happens. My son, who's 21, is a master at this. So my wife wanted him to do some stuff, and she asked him to, if he was going to mow the lawn. And he immediately answered her back with a question. And she answered. And he asked another question. And she answered. And he asked another question. And I watched for 10 minutes. It was like a lamb being led to the slaughter. My son took my wife on a journey. 10 minutes later, he had grabbed his soccer bag, was headed out to Furman to play soccer for the day. And I said, Lisa, I thought you wanted him to. She goes, oh my gosh, he got me. Totally got you. Because he who asks the questions controls the conversation. So I was totally in control of the conversation, but I was using Lee's data. Because here's the principle if you're writing things down. People don't argue with their own data. People don't argue with their own data. Which is why, as a leader, we have got to become more facilitative, not so command and demand, salute and stay mute. You become facilitative. Because if I would have told Lee 5 of hearts, she'd have said 3 of diamonds. I said, no, Lee, 5 of hearts, 6 of spades. Now here's the deal. Lee was going to 5 of hearts no matter what Lee said. I was taking Lee to 5 of hearts. That's what you go and do likewise. You take your team where you want them to go, but they have to self-discover. Now, this took a little bit longer because in the beginning, Lee didn't give me the number 5, right? She didn't give me 5, so I said, finally, crossed them out. I said, what's left? Then she gave me 5. Now, this conversation can either be done in 3 questions, or it can actually take 7 questions to get there. It just depends on the participant and what she gives me. I could have did it in 3, but it took me, 6, maybe 7, right, this time? But she was going to 5 of hearts, right? Some things I circled, some things I crossed off. Why? Lee's going to 5 of hearts. I'm taking her to 5 of hearts. Go and do likewise. Remember my copyright rule? Copy it right. So this is what we're going to do. It is 9:46. At 9:51, I'm going to start again. So let's take a quick restroom, get some more coffee, and come up with what's one more thing we need to discuss for this to be totally valuable for our time together. All right, take a break. So no, give me some feedback. What about you ladies in the back there? What's been a good takeaway so far? What's that? Never complain about what you permit. Never complain about what you permit. So, and the reality is, watch it. If it's in my team, I must have some way permitted it. Make sense? So the great news is you can be really angry about that. It can cause you some angst and some anger. But the best news is that you can change it. What's another takeaway so far? Yes, ma'am.
Every tweet is a strength overextended. It's profound.
Okay, so watch this. This is why rescuing, I was just talking to Pamela at the break, this is why rescuing is so prevalent, is because that's what we're gifted at. Most people in long-term care, you're gifted at caring. But here's what I want you to see, is that when you overextend it, it actually becomes a liability for people. You actually end up hurting people. That's what happens. You actually just keep them at the place of being a child. So sometimes it's like, here's how I hear it. It's like, oh, I don't want to like hurt that person, so I don't want to have that hard conversation. Listen, you have to care enough to confront. The fact that I care for you means I'm willing to confront this situation. Because here's the thing. If I don't like, people that don't like you will help you fail. They will help you fail. People that don't like you will help you fail. And if I don't like you, I'm not going to sit and have that conversation. But the fact that I care means that I should be able to have conflict. This is how it works, okay? What's keeping our teams together is this high level of care. And it really is the 3 C's that you've got to work through. Okay? So the foundation of every team is care. We care for each other. We have this high level of trust. But once I care, I should be able to have something else that starts with a C. You want to know what it is? What do you think? It has an O. Compassion. No. Anybody want to buy a vowel? No. N. What do you think it is? Huh? What? Concern. No. It has an L. Confidence. No. I need to sell vowels. I. Conflict. If I truly care, now watch this. If I truly care, I'm going to willing to go through conflict. Today, in my life, do you know who the person is I have the most conflict with in my life? Absolutely, my wife. All day long, we conflict over everything. Where we're going to go for dinner, where we're going to spend our money, what the kids are going to do, what they're not going to do, what we're going to do this weekend, what we're not going to do this weekend. Right? Now, when I say conflict, I am not saying screaming, yelling, throwing things against the wall, but I'm saying passionate debate over ideas. And the reason that you want to go through conflict is so that you get clarity. Without conflict, you have no clarity. And you have to be willing to step into conflict in order to get clarity. So here's what happens, is that sometimes we lie to ourselves and we say, well, I don't want to hurt them, so I'm not going to have that conversation. Or here's a classic one. Watch this. We rescue them and we save their jobs, when really at the end of the day, they might need to hit another bottom. Right? They might need to hit another bottom before they look up, before they turn around and they go, oh, yeah, I need to change. See, some people, you need to free their future, is the most help you could give. You know what it is to free somebody's future? It's like, hey, after today, you can work anywhere you want to work. Your future is really, really bright. You just can't work here anymore. But the future is really bright. I'm going to free your future, allow you to go do other things. Or you could share them with the competition, is another way to phrase it. It's like, hey, anybody here got some people that want to share? Right? But we've got to be willing to go through the conflict. And real care comes across as conflict sometimes. So that we get clarity. And once we get clarity, then we can have this strange word called accountability. But you never get it unless you go through this cycle. Everybody has big care here, but the skill is how do you go through conflict? How do you give feedback that helps people own their behavior? Would that be helpful to know how to give feedback? So we have a methodology called SOS. Actually, before I do that, is it okay if I give you a free gift? Would that be all right? Okay, so this is a part of the program where everybody takes out their cell phone, and you look over here. I have the Coaching Questions Toolkit, which are the top 20 questions that my clients have said, Dennis, these are the best questions that we've ever gotten to coach our team. So I want to give that to you. Would that be all right if I give that to you? So all you do is take out your cell phone, everybody take it out for a minute, and just text drama-free. Now, drama-free has to all be one word. If you're using an iPhone, it's going to separate into 2 words. Don't let it do that. Make sure it's one word, okay, so it'll look like it's not spelled correctly. And you just text drama-free to 555-888. And then that's my free gift to you today. You'll get a Coaching Questions Toolkit and all that good stuff. So is that helpful? Is that a blessing? Okay, wanted you to have it. And remember, there's a copyright rule on these questions. Just go copy it right. Okay? Take it, copy it, pretend they're your own, work with them, make them they're your own. Okay? And then a couple people at the break did ask me, I just want to show you this real quick. One thing that people have asked me is they said, Dennis, it would be great if you could sit in the corner of my office and be there with me, and as staff comes in, you just tell me what questions to use. They say, okay, say this. Okay, then say this. Okay, then say this. Okay, ask them this. And that's a little hard, but what I decided to do was create a coaching program and make it super reasonable that anybody could do. And so if you look at your handout that you downloaded on the app, I gave you 4 different frameworks that we want to cover today, but I actually have about 60 of these coaching frameworks that I want to show you, that I want you to have. And so what we thought is we're just going to create a coaching program where I share with you those frameworks. So basically what happens is the first Monday of every month, we get on a webinar. I take one of the frameworks. I show you one of the frameworks. I certify you in how to coach it with your team. And then you get to ask me any questions on leadership. And then if you can't make the call on Monday nights, it's recorded. It's kept in an archive that you can go back again and again to. Because what I realize is that I can't be at every facility, I can't be with every community, but I can do something to really get these frameworks in your hands. Because like I was telling Pamela, I'm on a mission to create 10,000 drama-free teams. And I want your teams to be drama-free. So if you have any questions, and if you just get it today, and it's super reasonable, it's like $19 a month. I'll give you a copy. Now, I don't have copies for everybody, but for the first 20, my book, Drama-Free Teams in Healthcare, and then I'll give you a bunch of other free stuff. So if anybody has any questions, but I did just want to mention that. So real quick, the SOS method of feedback. Would anybody say it would be helpful to figure out how can I give feedback so that people own their behavior? Would that be helpful? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, all right, good. Got to talk back to me. So it's called the SOS method. There are 3 parts to it. The first thing that you want to do with feedback is you want to give feedback so that other people see it. Because if I can't see it, I can't solve it. This is what happened to my weight loss. I remember I was doing this training, it was about 7 or 8 years ago. I was in Dallas, Texas, and I remember getting out of the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, and I was just honest with myself. I just saw it. I didn't use a softener. I didn't make an excuse. I just looked at myself, and I just told the truth. I said, Dennis, you're not chubby. You're not a little overweight. I looked in the mirror, and I said, Dennis, you're fat. You're fat as Texas. What the heck happened? Right? And I was just honest. And honesty creates freedom. So the first thing that you want to do with feedback is you want people to see it. Which, remember 5 of Hearts? Remember 5 of Hearts? What I was trying to get her to do is I was trying to get her to see it. But I didn't tell her. Here's the one thing that you can't do with feedback is people don't respond when you tell them about themselves. People don't respond well when you tell them about themselves. So here is the framework. Is what you want to do is you want to paint behavior to them and reflect it back. So what's a common thing that you need to give feedback on? Like a common poor behavior? Nobody has any poor behavior? Tardiness. Okay, great. What's your name? Mary. So if Mary was tardy, right? 10 minutes late all week. I say, hey, Mary, let's have a conversation. Come here for a minute. Says, hey, Mary, when you come in tardy 10 minutes every day this week, how do you think you show up? How do you think you show up? All I did was I painted behavior, and then I just asked her to look back at her behavior. Now, show up is my phraseology. You come up with your own. Maybe like, how do you think you come across? What do you think other people think? How do you think that looks? But what I didn't do is Mary, you're 10 minutes late. You're just lazy. It's always lazy. Because when I do that, guess what Mary wants to do? She wants to defend herself. She says, well, I'll show you. I'll tell you. Right? But all I asked her, because here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Mary to go, just own the behavior. I'm looking for Mary to go, yeah, Dennis, I've been kind of lazy. I can work with that. All day long, I can work with that. But what I can't work with is when she goes, well, you don't understand. My alarm clock doesn't go off. Well, my kids are blah, 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 right? Well, I live with my parents and blah, 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 right? Because she's not going responsible. So if she goes there, then I got to take it another step further. And here's what you do. Here's how you take it another step forward. Here's the principle. How to get your hand, Donna? How to get your hand? Yeah, how did I get your hand? I didn't reach for it. I gave you, no, I didn't take it. Didn't take it. I just gave you mine. Right? So here's what you want to do, is you want to give people a piece of transparency so that they give it back to you. There is this crazy thing in human nature called reciprocity. Whatever you give, you tend to get back. So if Mary is just totally in drama land, making excuses, poor Mary, being the blamer, playing the victim, I have to tell her about me. So here's how we would do it. Is like, hey, Mary, when you're tardy for 10 minutes, I feel, in fact, you just play it for me real quick. Okay, say I'm the one tardy. So Dennis, when you're tardy for 10 minutes, I feel, how do you feel, Mary? How do you feel? Are you angry? Are you frustrated? You got to feel something. What do you feel? Got to own it. Got to own your own. Watch it. Got to own your own feelings. Right? I'm frustrated. Right? It's okay. Nothing wrong. I feel frustrated because I think. Do you think I don't care, or what do you think? Oh, I think I can do better. Because Dennis, I think you can do better. Can you help me? Now, watch this. Mary didn't tell me I didn't care. Mary didn't tell me about my behavior. She told me about her. Does that make sense? Okay, behavior, feeling, thinking. When whatever behavior happens. Now, the whole goal that you're trying to do this, the reason that you're trying to do this is you're trying to get me to see it. Now, most leaders, they want to jump to the last part automatically, and they want to solve it. You've been tardy the last 5 days. We're gonna fix this, by golly, right? This has got to stop. Listen, if I don't see it, if your team doesn't see it's a problem, guess what? It's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's only a problem until I see it. Our goal as leaders is to help people see it. The challenge is, this is the hardest thing ever to do in leadership, is to help people see it. So here's a great way to understand how this works. So if you got a piece of paper, just simply draw a big box. Okay? This is the part of the program where you have a chance to get very angry, and so just pace some of your anger because it gets worse as we go along. The top axis, go 1 through 10. The bottom axis to the left, 1 through 10. Okay, everybody got the box? Okay. So along this axis, I want you to rate how much feedback do you get. So the top is get feedback. 10 being 24/7, you're inundated with feedback. 1 being you get completely none. So just give it a mark wherever you usually give it. Okay, you got that? Now along this axis, I want you to rate how much feedback do you give. 10 being 24/7, everybody knows what you're thinking. You're giving your creativity, your ideas, your strategies, your thoughts, your feelings. 1 being you're totally a closed book. Most people say it's a 7, which is a lie, but whatever, okay? You just give it whatever you give it. And then simply give me 4 quadrants, and then hold them up, because I want to see them. Show me what you got. Sir, you're going to be a little angry. Just hold off. You'll be okay. You'll be great. You're going to be fantastic. Sir, you'll do great. Ma'am, you'll be great. You'll be awesome. Ma'am, you're going to get really upset in just a minute. Just hold your anger. Okay, what do we got? You'll be a little upset. Ma'am, you'll be frustrated. Wow, we need to do 5 of hearts again. Okay, how many people want to know what these boxes represent? How many people just wish it was over and can we go to the beach? I'm with you, all right, I'm with you. Okay, this box right here, however big it happens to be, is your open arena. It's what's open about you. This box right here, however big it happens to be, is your closed arena. It's what's closed about you, closed off. Some people are more private than others, not a big deal, okay? Here's the boxes that I want to talk about. This box right here, however big it happens to be, is your blind spot. It's what everybody sees about you, but you don't see. What happens when cars get in your blind spot? Right, you crash. See, when you don't have people to tell you the truth, so I'll never forget, my life changed about 15 years ago. I was doing this training in Boston, Mass, working with a guy named Lance, and I remember getting out of the car and walking to the restaurant. I said, Lance, what's my big constraint? So I'm walking in the restaurant. He says, oh my gosh, Dennis, he says, you are addicted to change. Dennis, you go from thing to thing to thing. You never build a process behind you. Everything just flows through your fingers, money, relationships, opportunities. He says, you're a hot mess. And just walked into the restaurant. I know, that's how I felt. I was like, almost crushed me. But here's the good news. That was the best news I could ever receive, because ever since I got that news, I've been passionate about creating processes and systems so that that never, ever happens. Make sense? Because you don't know what you don't know. One thing that I will probably do, I so appreciate Mindy in recording this and doing it on video, because this is probably the presentation that I will take this video and I will put it up on a YouTube channel, on a private YouTube channel that nobody else will see, and I'll send it to 15, 20 other speakers that I know, and I'll ask them, hey, tell me what sucks about this. Hey, tell me what's bad about this. Tell me what you would improve. I do it about twice a year, and I got to be honest with you, the week after is like week from hell. It is week from hell. You know, because I realize that people say, well, I just love the truth. Just tell me the truth. You know, I realize I don't love the truth when I first hear it. Does anybody feel that same way? It's like, oh gosh, it's like it hurts, and it's like, but it's the best news. Because that's the way that you get better. Now, you also have something here called your unknown, here's the key word, unknown potential. It's everything that you could be. It's your unknown potential. Now, before you get really, really excited about having a big box of potential, how many people realize nothing ever changes with potential? In fact, this is the drug that most leaders are hooked on. Probably you might have got shot up with it in the back room, just, ooh, potential. Because I come into places and here's what they tell me. They go, oh my gosh, Dennis, this person, he has potential. Now listen, if you're 18 years old, and that's great news. Somebody says you've got a lot of potential. If you're 80 years old and somebody says you have a lot of potential, not so good. Okay? Not so good. Potential's never done anything. Here's what you want to do, okay? Is you want to continue to get feedback and give feedback. Continue to get it and give it. So watch this. That blind spot starts to shrink, and your potential becomes out in the open. You'll never realize your potential without the getting and giving of feedback. Without the getting and giving of feedback. So how many people here would like an exercise to accelerate this process? Would that be helpful? Yeah, would that be helpful? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give you this exercise, and for doing this exercise, you just have to simply email. I'm going to put an email address up on the board here. It's info@leadershipprocess.com. Leadership process. This is just free. I just thought about this idea. And if you do this exercise, I'll give you a free copy of my book, Drama-Free Teams in Healthcare. Is that okay? Yeah, I'll send you a digital copy of my book. Is that all right? Would that be helpful? Yeah, I'll do that. So here's the exercise. About once a year, I do this exercise called a 2-2-2. 2-2-2. And I email 15 to 20 people that know my behavior. Because remember, nothing changes until behavior changes. So I email 15 to 20 people, and I ask them, hey, share with me 2 things that I need to start doing. What are 2 things I need to stop doing? And what are 2 things I need to continue to do? See, because here's what, yes, ma'am. info@leadershipprocess.com. Leadership process. Don't even put a subject. And in fact, all you have to do is say, I did it. I don't even want your responses. You don't even have to share with me your responses. I just want to know that you did it. It's a 2-2-2. What are 2 things I need to stop? What are 2 things I need to start? And what are 2 things I need to continue? Now, what you're looking for here when you do this is you are looking for themes, which means if one person calls you a jackass, do not worry. Okay? If 10 people call you a jackass, go buy a saddle. Okay? Just go buy a saddle. Okay, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for themes. Now, here's what's interesting. If I walk through your community, through your building, I probably would hear this from a team member because I hear it all the time. This is what people say. They say, well, Dennis, I just don't get enough feedback. Now, let me ask you. If I say I don't give enough feedback, whose fault is that? Whose fault is it? It's mine. It's not the manager's. You know what they think they're telling me about? They think they're secretly telling me all about their manager. But you know who they're secretly telling me about? They're telling me all about themselves. See, because if I don't get enough feedback, whose fault is that? That's my fault. And you can actually create this environment around you that you get feedback. I mean, has anybody here ever given feedback to somebody who didn't want it and didn't ask for it? Yeah, it's like, hey, I've done that once and I'll never do that ever again, right? Yeah, it's like we go through that, but you can actually create this environment where you actually want feedback. This one question has changed how I get feedback. Would that be helpful to share with you? It's a very simple question. I used to say, hey, do you have any feedback for me? There are 2 possible answers to that. They are yes or no, right? And when they said no, it's like, oh, great talking to you, right? Conversation's done. But I just changed one nuance and I said, hey, what feedback do you have for me? What feedback do you? There's got to be something. You can't walk. No. What feedback? What feedback do you have for me? Because what I never want to do is I never want to get into the place where things are in my blind spot, where I don't know what I don't know. So is that helpful? How many people would take my challenge and say, I'll do that email? Send an email? Okay, so just send an email to info@leadershipprocess and say, hey, I did it, and my team will send you a copy of the book. But the first thing that we do when we give feedback is we want to help people see it. And then once they see it, then we want them to own it. See it, own it, solve it. So with owning it, one simple question, very easy, is what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Hell, I was kind of lazy. Okay, well, what do you want to do about that problem? What do you want to do? What are you going to do? Do you know out of the see it, own it, solve it, do you know what the easiest step is? Easiest step is solve it. People are powerful enough to solve their own problems. Now, I probably should have shared this at the very beginning, but I'll share it right now, is that with any of these frameworks that I give you, The only way they work is that you have to believe in the golden rule. You know what the golden rule is? What is that? Do unto others. That's a golden rule, but that's not the rule I'm talking about. I believe in that golden rule, but here's the golden rule that I'm talking about, is that you have to believe there is gold inside of every person. There is gold inside of every person. So when a miner goes into mine for gold, is he focused on the dirt or is he focused on the gold? He's focused on the gold. When you work with people, it's the same way. Listen, your brain only finds what your eyes and your ears are looking for. Your brain only sees what your eyes are looking for and your ears are hearing. Your brain only sees what your eyes are looking for. One quick thing, and let me just finish this and I'll answer your question. Do you have a question? Yeah, okay, hold on. So you got to believe in the golden rule. So when a miner goes into mine for gold, he has to be focused on the gold. Now, when you're working with people, it's the same way. You go in, and some people, there might be a ton of dirt, and you go, oh my gosh, there's gold somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I got to find it. Other people, it's almost all gold. You just got to dust it off, and it's all gold. But you have to believe there's gold. And if you don't believe there's gold inside of your team, why are they on your team? And what does that say about you? And if you don't believe in the golden rule, please do not use any of these frameworks, because it does come off as a little bit as manipulation. Because people always feel you before they hear you. People always feel you before they hear you. Have you ever met somebody and you go, they look the right way, they say the right things, but just something in your heart, you go, something's not right? Have you ever had that? Right? Actually, science has shown that your heart vibrates 10 feet out in front of you. So there's this vibration that your insides give. And that's where you come up with this. So if you don't really believe in the golden rule, I will tell you probably none of this will work for you. Yes, ma'am, real quick. Yeah. I answered it? That was quick. Wow, we're all done. Okay, so let's take 5 minutes, find 2 other people that you haven't talked to today. Everybody stand up and discuss what's one big takeaway so far from today. Ready? Everybody stand up. Find 2 other people you haven't talked to, and what's one big takeaway from today so far. Go. Just raise your hands. Nobody move. Don't move. Don't move. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Stay standing. Or stay sitting. Stay however you are. Okay, awesome. Your group right there, what'd you guys come up with? What's key takeaway? Somebody pop up? The iceberg. Awesome. So just remember, people have a whole person concept, which means the iceberg, people bring their feelings, their thinking, their values, and beliefs. And the reason that you want to use questions is to kind of get it out, and then you can shape it. So here's what's going to happen as leaders. You're going to go back to your communities, back to your teams, and you're going to start using questions. And here is what they're going to say. They're going to say something like, well, you're my boss, just tell me what to do. Right? That's what you're going to hear. Well, you're the boss, tell me what to do. And once you hear that belief, go after that belief. I would stop talking about the problem and start talking about the belief that you believe your boss is supposed to solve all your problems. Hey, let's talk about this belief. Because imagine if you could change the belief where people believe, hey, I can solve my own problems. I can fix this myself, right? And if you fix that belief, then guess what happens? A lot of this other stuff kind of goes away. And what happens is that you're in the web of behavior and you want to try to get to the spider. And the spider is the belief. All behavior is driven by a belief. All behavior is belief driven. And if you can find the belief, and that's why that's such a gift, that is like gold. It's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You just gave me this great belief. Now I can shape that. But I can't shape it until you first give it to me. Make sense? So that's why you want to use questions. So that's perfect. What did you guys come up with? Was a big takeaway for y'all? Okay, so go ahead. The untapped potential, right. The way that you continue to get your potential out is by getting and giving of feedback. Giving and getting of feedback. The challenge is that can be very painful. That's why people only grow to their pain tolerance. Leaders only grow to their pain tolerance. To go up another level, it's going to take another level of pain. What did this group come up with? Would you?
We really focused on the 2-2-2.
The 2-2-2?
That's a very effective way to get the feedback and to elicit positive and negative rejoicing, and we thought that was very helpful.
Okay, let me give you a change management strategy to go back to your team with. Do the same thing with your team. I facilitate a lot of dialogues with teams where we'll bring teams together and I'll ask them, hey, what do we here at the community, what do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing? What do we need to continue to do? And what you actually do is you 5 of heart them, right? You have a certain place you want to go, but you take them to 5 of hearts. Make sense? And you enroll them in the process. Would you all come up with?
Just the power of questions.
The power of questions, right? Your power is in your questions. Please, everybody get my coaching questions. What'd you guys come up with?
There's gold in every person.
There is gold inside of every person. Would it be helpful for me to show you a 3-part process to find gold? Okay, didn't plan on that, but just somebody make sure I give that to you before we leave. What did you guys come up with over here? Yes, ma'am?
The SOS.
The SOS?
People to see it.
Getting people to see it. So the way that you do it is you use questions. Remember, mind control. I expect everybody to go back to your teams and practice mind control. Mind control. That's the game that you're in. Mind control game. What did you all come up with? The weakness versus strength, which every weakness is a...
Overextended.
Right. Yeah, and so what you want to do is you want to continue to get feedback. Now, how do I know when it's overextended? Isn't that a good question? Right? That's the question. The only way that I know that is when the outcome is not the outcome I want. Right? Outcomes tell the story. It's just like me stepping on a scale. You know all that does? It's just a story. That's all it is. It paints the picture back to me. So go ahead, everybody have a seat real quick. So isn't that amazing? That, well, let me just say it this way. Everybody remember that story, that show, Biggest Loser? Yeah. Right? I wish they had that back on. That's so fun. Yeah, right. But the very first episode, what do they do with people? Step on the scale in front of national television, right? 25 million people are going to see. But here's what's interesting. People are afraid of the scale, aren't they? They don't want to see it. Isn't that how feedback is? Isn't it the same? And all that scale is just feedback. It just paints a picture of what my behavior has been. Make sense? Okay, so what'd you guys come up with over here? What'd you guys come up with?
The blind spot closes as you reach your potential.
The blind spot. And how do you close your blind spot? Right, giving and getting. Now watch this. Here's why you want to give feedback. You want to, just like you're an iceberg, your team's an iceberg, you want to give feedback so that you get your beliefs out there. You get your beliefs out there. Why every 25, 30 minutes do I have you stand up and have a discussion with somebody? You know why? To get it out, right? To get it out, because that's what you're going to own. You're only going to own what you talk about. And I would rather have you leave and make a change. In fact, think about this. Does nothing ever change into your life until you just get angry? Isn't that true? Most things in your life don't ever change. Like, I hope you don't walk out of here going, oh, that was really nice, thank you. I hope you walk out of here a little pissed off. Because nothing changes. Right? It's like my weight never changed until it's like, that's it. That's it, enough is enough. Isn't that how it is with your team? You put up with it, you put up with it, you put up with it, and then what happens? That's it. Right? I'm mad and I'm angry and we're going to change this right now. But what if you lowered your toleration level? You know, the quality of your life, the quality of your team is the amount of tolerations that you have. If you tolerate a lot and a lot and a lot, and remember, people rise or fall to your level of expectation. They rise or fall to your level of expectation. People tend to behave how you expect them to be. If you expect them to be children, they will absolutely be children. Guarantee it. But if you expect them to be adults, they'll rise. Now, what you want to do is you want to continue to create this no-drama culture And then when it's very, very clear, here's what happened. People start to self-select. So my friend here in the back asked the question, like, how, even if we have no drama in our community, how do we change somebody's personal culture? Which is a great question. Now, here's what's interesting, is if you're not careful, like abnormal becomes normal. Abnormal becomes normal. So the best way to describe it is when I first got married, I took my wife to my family reunion. So we were only married about 6 months, took her to family reunion. After about 2 hours, she pulled me into the back room. And she said, Dennis, you all are crazy. Do you all hate each other? And I was like, what? What's the problem? You know, I realized I come from Loudland. You know, he who yells the loudest wins the argument. He who can sustain the yelling the longest wins. This is how we roll, right? We'd rather argue with you than agree. But here's what's interesting. I thought that was normal. But I went to my wife's family reunion and realized she comes from Quiet Land. I come from Loudland, she comes from Quiet Land. But here's what's interesting. I thought that was normal until I went and experienced a different culture. My hope would be for you to go back and share some of these frameworks, incorporate some drama-free language into your teams, and then people will start to self-select. So like you start to use that I don't know methodology where you use those 2 questions to combat I don't know, and you start to ask people, you know, what are you going to do about that problem you have? And you start to like make them solve their own problems. Here's what happens. You'll have some people come and go, hey, I think I found a different job. Hey, I think I found someplace else to work. Because some people want to be the victim. They like it. They want to be the child. Heck yeah, I want to be a child. And sometimes it's one of the saddest days when I realize that there are certain people that I just can't help. I can't help. If you don't think you have a problem, guess what? I can't help you. If you won't own your own behavior, I can't help you. If you don't tell me the truth about yourself, I can't help you. And you only can help people to the degree that they allow you to help them. And one of the hardest things in leadership, and I don't know if you faced this, but one of the biggest pains of leadership is that I have your answer, I can help you, I can make a difference in your life, but you don't allow me to. And you can't help somebody that doesn't want help. So don't try to rescue. Don't try to step in and save the day. The best thing that you can do many times is just to reflect that behavior back to them and allow them to own it or not. What about you ladies? What came out when you guys talked? What's that? Asking the right questions. So here is a question. Okay, here's part of the program where we're going to have a fist fight. So I'm ready for it. Okay, we're going to get ready to have a fist fight. Now, would it be helpful to know the one question almost everybody in this room asks that perpetuates most of the drama? Would it be helpful? Yeah. And a lot of you ask it. Now, before I tell you what it is, just so you know you're going to disagree. But do you trust me enough to kind of just walk for about 10 minutes through this conversation and then we'll see? Is that fair? Because here's how it goes. What's your name? Jamie. You want to play with me, Jamie? All right, great. So here's what I would say. Something happened. Jamie did something maybe I didn't do an outcome that we needed. I'd come and say, Jamie, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Why? Why'd you do that? Why? What is your first reaction when I ask you why? Defense, right? So I'll tell you, Mcintee, you're this and this, right? The first thing he wants to do is he wants to defend himself. Once he goes to defense, we can't even have a collaborative conversation. Okay? One of your goals as a leader is to create open, safe places. Because imagine, as a leader, what would it be like if you don't have to spend any time following up on people, trying to find out if they did everything they're supposed to do? And then, how much time does your team spend trying to cover up things so that you don't find it out? I asked that question at Ohio Healthcare to about a group of a couple hundred administrators. I said, hey, how much time during your week do you spend trying to find stuff out that other people are hiding from you? And that guy blurted out, is it 40 hours a week? I was like, oh gosh, here, this group hug. It's come up to the front. It's like, I wanted just to cry with him. But imagine if you had an open, collaborative, trusting space with people where they didn't hide. Right? Now, I just told you not to ask why. And now you're sitting there going, well, what the heck do I ask? Because so for some of you, that's the only thing you do. It's like, man, that's my magic question. Well, why? And listen, I understand root cause analysis. We got to get down to the problem. We got to fix this problem, right? So now you're like, well, now you totally messed me up. So just stay with me because I'm going to answer the question, okay? I'm going to answer it. So I was working with a particular administrator in the Northeast, and he wanted to know, he had a staff meeting, I was there with him, and his department heads were there, and somebody didn't perform and didn't get something done. Has that ever happened on your team? Okay, only in the Northeast, doesn't happen in Georgia, that's awesome. Okay, so, and I remember he was walking out of his office, he was mad. He's like, Dennis, I want you to tell me, why don't they ever perform? Why don't they get stuff done? I says, Henry, you don't want to know why. He says, no, I want to know why. He says, you're going to tell me why. I says, you don't want to know why, Henry. He goes, no, I want to know why. I need to know why. This has got to be solved. We got to fix this. I said, fine. We're going to find out why. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to go buy a nice couch, and we're going to put this couch in the corner of your office, Henry. And I said, every week for about an hour, this employee is going to come, and he's going to lay down on the couch. Probably going to take us about a year. Going to psychoanalyze him, get down to the root cause of why it is. I says, Henry, you're probably going to find out something like this. Well, when he was 4 years old, his dad left him and abandoned the family, and he really puts you as a father figure in his life, and so he desperately doesn't want to disappoint you, so he hides all this stuff so that you don't get mad because he really wants your love and your approval. And I asked him, I said, Henry, do you really, really want to know why? Or do you just want the behavior changed? So let me ask you in Georgia, do you really, really want to know why? Or do you just want the behavior changed? We just want the behavior changed. Now remember, this is coming from a guy who spent 15 years in marriage and family therapy as a therapist, and I am telling you, you don't want to know why. Now that what I've messed you up, and you're going, well, what do I do now, Mcintee? This is the part of the program where I sell you $10,000 worth of product and show you how. Or I can just give it to you. Would that be helpful? Don't you hate guys that do that? It's like, here's your problem. Now you got to buy this. Smile a little bit, okay? I'm here. We're giving it all to you. Okay, so here is the matrix. Here's the matrix that makes everything more proactive and not reactive. Here's how it starts. It starts with what or how plus an action. What plus an action or how plus an action. Now, for all of you in the room that secretly still want to figure out why and you can't get off of it, totally understand. You can still find out why by using this framework. Something happens, hey, what transpired here? Hey, how did this come about? But do you see how that quick dynamic makes it much more productive and proactive? Something happens, what are you going to do about that problem? How are you going to fix it? How can you solve that? Now, here's a careful nuance that a lot of leaders fall into that I want you to be very careful of. Here's how it goes, Pamela. I go, okay, so Pamela, how can we fix this? It's Pamela's problem, Pamela's issue, and I go, Pamela, how can we fix this? Here's what she typically would say. She goes, well, Dennis, you can do this and this. And all of a sudden, what happened? It's all mine, right? It's all mine. Yeah. You got to be very careful of that dynamic. It's like, hey, what do you want to do about that problem? How do you want to fix it? Do we want the behavior changed or not? Right? And watch this. All of our outcome is stemmed from behavior. You are in the behavior change game. If you're taking notes, remember, nothing changes until behavior changes. Nothing changes until behavior changes. I don't care if you got a policy. I don't care if you got a handbook. I don't care if you got a rule book. I don't care if you write your core values on the wall and put your mission statement out there. Nothing changes until behavior changes. And our goal is to give people 3 different things. We give them awareness. They're the triple A of leadership. You give them awareness. You continue to give them awareness. And the way that you do it is by 5 of hearts. Stop telling them, because they will fight you. They will fight you. It will not be a productive conversation. So we give them awareness. The second A is we give them alignment. We show them the behavior. It is show and tell. Okay? It is follow the leader. We show them and then we tell them. We don't tell. A lot of times here's what happens. We tell. No, it's like we show and we tell. We show and we tell. That's the game. It's not Simon Says. Some leaders just like to play Simon Says. You know, command and demand, salute and stay mute. I'll tell you what to do. I'll tell you how to think. Okay? Now listen, you can practice that type of management, but let me ask everybody in the room, how many people in the room you just love to be managed? Don't you just love it? Some of you want to fight me right now. You're like, heck no. Here's what I've realized. Everybody wants to be led. Nobody wants to be managed. Your team is the same way. They want to be led. They want to be led. So you can try to, and it does produce a measure of results. Listen, you can go back. You are ridiculously in charge of you. You can go back to your communities and you can go after the hand. But if you just go after the hand and don't get the heart, then people feel manipulated. So would it be helpful for me to give you 2 ways to get somebody's heart? Would that be helpful? Nope? Okay, good. How many people ready for just go to the beach? We're almost there. It's almost beach time. Get ready. All right. Let me give you 2 different frameworks to help you. Does everybody here in your car or on your phone have a GPS? Okay? Most of you have a smartphone. If you have an Apple phone, I can really help you today, but if you have an Android, I pretty much have nothing for you. Okay? None of my frameworks will work for if you have an Android. Okay, so everybody has a GPS. GSP. It's because I'm from Greenville, Spartanburg. GPS. It's the first time I ever messed that one up. GPS. Okay, so my GPS guides me. And here's what I want you to think. GPS, everybody has goals, right? Certain outcomes, certain things that they want to become, right? Have a better marriage, buy a house, buy a car, go back to school. They have goals. They have outcomes. And then they also have passions. Long distance running, Boston Red Sox baseball, Clemson Tigers football, right? We all have these different passions. And also people have struggles, certain constraints and things that are holding them back. So first, let me ask you a question. I want everybody to think about the best leader that you've ever worked with or been associated with. Okay, you say, this person was a great leader to me. Now, they could have been a former boss, a parent, a coach, or does everybody have that person in their mind? Okay, get that person in your mind before, and I'm not going to have you tell us who it is, but just get that person in your mind, and I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, you ready for my question? Okay, here's the question. Was that person more focused on what you did or who you were becoming? What do you think? Was it what you did or who you were becoming? Would we all say it's who you were? How many people would say it's who you're becoming? Raise your hand. Yeah, like the 10,000 other leaders I've surveyed. Nobody has ever said, well, they're more important about what I did. The best leaders are concerned about who you are becoming. And when you find somebody's GPS, and you just help, now I'm not saying that you become everybody's psychotherapist, you go become everybody's life coach, but if you find my goals, my passions, and my struggles, and you help me, I will give you, you get my heart, my hand comes along with it. My son, he's 25 years old now, but about 8 years ago, he came to me and he said, Dad, he had just graduated high school, he had a scholarship to Maryland Institute of College and Art, and he had a scholarship, and it was right in his summer year. He's like, Dad, he said, square it eye, lives in Greenville. I'm like you. I was like, what the heck's a squared eye? Anybody want to know what a squared eye is? I was like, what the heck is a squared eye? Right? And he said, Dad, he said, it's his Twitter handle. He said he's this world-famous designer, and he works in San Francisco, but he lives here in Greenville, comes home every weekend. He said, I just realized he lives in Greenville. He said, how do I meet him? Do I stalk him? Do I find out where he lives? What do I do? And I says, Andrew, just hold off. Let's just think about it. I just want to think about it. And so about 2 weeks later, this truth's crazy. 2 weeks later, I was having coffee with a friend of mine, and he pastors a tiny little church in Greer, South Carolina, otherwise known as Greer. Anybody know where Greer is? Right? Greer. Yeah, so he pastors a little country church in Greer. And so I remember meeting with him, and we're having coffee, and he says, Dennis, he says, you'll never believe it. He says, I got this young family coming to my church. He said he's this world-famous designer that works in San Francisco. He says he goes by this crazy name, Squared Eye. And I said, really? That's really interesting. Now, here's what's interesting is that Bradley, that pastor, introduced my son to Squared Eye, changed the trajectory of his life. And Bradley just found one of my passions, one of my goals, and just helped me with it. I have given Bradley so much free consulting, it's crazy. Anytime Bradley calls, I will always answer his call. Whatever Bradley needs, I will absolutely help him, because he tapped in to this. Now, here's what's interesting, is that some organizations have used this as part of their yearly review. They actually find this and just have monthly coaching sessions, 10, 15 minutes. Hey, how you doing on your goals? They know what their passions are. They're helping them through their personal struggles. And here's the deal. Once you get their heart, the hand comes with it. The best analogy of this is that we've got a client up in the Northwest that the pipes burst in the building over the winter, flooding the building. And they got on a phone tree, and like all the CNAs, everybody showed up like at 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning to help the residents. And this is what they said. The prevailing thought was, this is my community. These are my residents. These are my families. But they had been through a process where they just had everybody's goals, passions, and struggles. You know, there are going to be some people that work with you, it's only there for a time. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year. Other people will be with you for years. But I know, I always want to ask myself, are you better that you've been with me? Even if I had to free your future, even if I had to give you some kind of awareness, have you been better that you've been with me? Because here's the deal. This workforce is going to continue to be changing. And if we can learn to get their hearts, this is a very simple way to get their hearts and just help them. Their hand comes with it. Now, let me give you a people evaluator that I think will be helpful. This is a freebie, and then we're going to take a quick break. It's called GWC. So I want everybody to think of somebody or your biggest employee challenge. Who is that person? Now, don't say their name because they might be sitting next to you. Okay, that would be really bad. Okay, so I want you to think about who is your biggest challenge. Got that person in your mind? Don't write their name down. Write their name down. Okay, so here I want you just to go through this matrix. The first thing I ask myself is, do they get it? You know, do they mentally get the job? Some people just don't get it, right? But is it clear the duties that they need to perform? Is it clear? Is it spelled out? C is, do they have the capacity to grow? Can they grow into it? Do they have a growing mindset? Are they able to change and develop and get better? Okay? Get it is part of our job as leaders. Help them with their capacity, part of my job as a leader. But this middle one, you can't do anything about. They have to show up. Anybody want to guess what it is? Willing, pretty close. Do they want it? Do you want it? And here's the thing. If they don't want it, it's like pushing rope. That's what it's like. It's like pushing rope. So here's the question. Now that you have this person in your mind, it is the hardest, ugliest, nastiest question I'm going to give you. Don't answer it. Just answer it in your mind, okay? Here's a question I always ask. Knowing what you know now, right? Knowing what you know now, because now you really know. The 3 ways to really know somebody is you can either marry them, give birth to them, or hire them, right? There's the 3 ways you really know somebody, right? Either marry them, give birth to them, or hire them, right? They interview, they say certain things, but 6 months later you go, oh yeah, now I really know you. I really know, right? Because I know your behavior. Okay, so knowing what you know now, would you rehire that person? And if the answer is no, then I want to know, what are you going to do about that problem you have? Because if you wouldn't rehire them, it is not fair to them to keep them on your team. I know you might be short with CNAs. I know you might not have anybody to work nights. I got it. But I advise all of my clients to experience the pain on the front end, not the back end. That pain will just grow. It will just get worse and worse and worse, and it is better to experience the pain now than wait. Because as it grows, it gets worse. And isn't that an ugly question that I just gave you? Especially if you said no, you're like, oh, I hate that. But it's true, knowing what you know now, and if you wouldn't rehire them, don't make any investment. I cost myself thousands of dollars in coaching engagements because I asked that question of people and they go, yeah, I wouldn't rehire them. And I'm like, well, let's not make an investment. Let's not make any investment if you wouldn't rehire them. So with that ugly question, I'm going to let you stew on that for a break. Sound good? So we're going to come back at 11:05. So stew on that ugly question, and we'll start at 11:05. Awesome. So we have talked about the big barrier from behavior to outcomes is this drama. There are how many parts to the drama triangle? 3, right? People choose to play the victim, the blamer, or when we rescue, we actually perpetuate this cycle. So did I talk about what's the key way to stop rescuing? Questions. Questions, right? When they bring you problems, you give their problems back to them. What do you want to do about that problem you have? Stop telling, start asking. Stop telling and start asking. Now, it's going to be very, very hard. I'm going to just tell you that, okay? Because you're a smart person, you actually know what to do, and you know the answer. Now, here's what's going to happen as you go back to your communities, back to work, is that you're going to go, oh my gosh, Dennis, I don't have that much time. Things are going fast, fast, fast. Now I got to have a 10-minute coaching conversation. Does anybody ever feel that pain? Right? It's like, what do we do? So here's the caveat that I want to give you is that you will come to points where it's like, listen, we got to get this stuff done, right? And I just have to tell you, because you're just not getting it, I'm going to give you a pass. That's okay. But what I want you to do is I want you to come back when it's a little bit less chaotic, crazy time, document it, and then have the coaching conversation. Basically, hey, let's review. Yesterday, when I was just command and demand and just told you what to do, listen, moving forward, and then have the coaching conversation. Does that make sense? Because sometimes as we're doing this, here's part of the frustration I know when I first work with clients and first work with leaders, and I remember hearing this from a particular person. She goes, Dennis, she said, you made me so, she said, I was so angry in the beginning with you because I felt like we were slowing everything way, way, way down. She said, but now, 6 months later, we move so fast. And so for some of you to change your leadership style, you're going to have to slow it down a little bit, but you need to slow down to go fast. But if you keep trying to go fast, you're going to slow down. And some things you need to slow down in order to go fast. Does that make sense? So some of these, especially if you're changing how you lead teams, you're going to have to slow it down a little bit. But this is the enemy right here, this drama right here. So and then we you want to talk about these 3 things that that you asked about? I think we have 4. Would that be helpful? So we talked about how to convert negative staff. Did we talk about this? We didn't talk about this? All right, so let me give you a way to do that. Can I change whether you're negative or positive? Right? Can I control your behavior? What's the only thing I can do? So I can help you see it. That's the only thing I can do, and then you get to choose if you see it. So converting negative staff, I would want to know, hey, when you complain all the time, how do you think you come across to everybody? Hey, when whatever behavior, or hey, when you complain to everybody, I feel really frustrated because I don't think you want to be here. Can you help me? I didn't say you wanted to be here, but I gave you some of me. I gave you my belief to hopefully get some of you back. Now, if they are still in drama, they're blaming other people, they're giving you all of the excuses, let me give you the excuse buster. Would it be helpful to know how to bust all the excuses? So we'll come right back to this. I'll give you the excuse buster. But before I do, I need everybody to own their own excuses. Okay, so I'm going to share with you my favorite excuse. I have a particular favorite excuse that when I use it, people they don't know what to do. They can't combat against it. So I'm going to share with you mine, but first I want to know yours. So they're just amongst your table, just turn around to another person and just share with them, what is your favorite excuse? What is the excuse that you use all the time? Because you use one. I know you have one. All right, awesome. Okay, what is your favorite excuse over here? I'm overloaded. I have too much work. Not enough time. That's a favorite one. There you go. What about you guys? Favorites? Not enough time? There you go. Same, not enough time. What'd you guys come up with? Not enough time. Back in the back, what favorite excuse did you have? Not enough time. Over here on this side. Steve, what'd you come up with? What'd you have? Yeah. I don't know enough. That's a great one. Okay, what about you guys? What'd you come up with? Right? What'd you all come up with? Oh, and I forgot. Yeah, that's a great one. What'd y'all come up with here? It's hard. All right, there you go. It's hard. Okay, so here's mine. And then I'm going to show you how to bust it. Now, typically, when people give you an excuse, what's the very next thing they do? Nothing. Right? They do nothing. They look at you with deer in the headlights, and they do nothing. And then the outcome for doing nothing is nothing. Are you happy with that outcome? No. So let's fix it. So here's mine. And when I play mine, my team doesn't know what to say. So here's how mine goes. Mine goes, and it always starts with that way. Okay, I always do that. I travel too much. Travel too much. Dennis, why is that new book not written? I just travel too much. Dennis, why is the podcast not done yet? I just travel too much. Dennis, why is the garage not clean? I just travel too much. Right? Why is your office a mess? Oh my gosh, I travel too much. I'm always traveling, travel. And so they don't know what to say because it's true. And it's not like I'm going to stop traveling, right? Like next week I'm in Boston and Philadelphia. The week after that I'm in D.C. The week after that I'm in San Francisco. It's not like I'm going to stop traveling. But when I make that excuse, I do nothing, and I'm not creative. So here's what I use on myself and what I use on other people. Ready? It's even though, favorite excuse, even though you don't have enough time, how can you still, whatever action you need to take? even though, now typically when people make excuses, here's typically what leaders do. First of all, you get frustrated, you probably get a sense of anger, and then you just go, well, just get it done. I don't care you don't have enough time. Just get it done. Right? It's typically like what comes out of our mouth because we're frustrated, right? It's like, okay, when that happens, people don't feel like you get them. They don't feel understood. We're trying to get people to understand before they feel understood. So when somebody says, hey, Dennis, even though you're traveling all this week, how can you still get that blog post written? All of a sudden, you know what happens? I start to get creative. I go, well, I guess I could get up 15 minutes early, or, I'm going to be in the Admirals Club in Charlotte for 30 minutes. Let me block out time to do it there. Or all of a sudden, what happens is I just start to get creative. When I make excuses with myself, and I just start to lie to myself and go, oh my gosh, I just don't have enough time. Well, okay, Dennis, even though you don't have a lot of time, how can you still? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to create confident, collaborative, creative teams. Imagine if your team was confident. Imagine if your team was creative. Imagine if they were collaborative. Wouldn't that be awesome? Right? Typically why people go into I don't know, typically why people make excuses is they don't feel a sense of confidence. Let me ask you a question. Let me tell you about me. Is that if we were in a particular 12-step program and we all got together and we were doing this particular 12-step program, here's how I would show up. Is I would come and I would sit down in our 12-step program today and I would say, hi, my name is Dennis and I'm a procrastinator. And that would be my 12-step program. I'm a procrastinator. How many people here you would say you are a procrastinator too? Here is the truth. Everybody procrastinates about something. Everybody procrastinates about something. So here's what I want you to think about, okay? Why your team procrastinates about things, right? Your team puts things off. They don't jump into things. And typically, you always procrastinate where you don't feel confident. You don't feel capable, and you don't feel confident. Now, here's what I have realized. Everybody loves to feel capable and confident. Isn't that true? Right? Don't you just love it? I love it. I love to be capable. I love to be confident. But typically, nobody does anything until they feel capable and confident. So if I'm right here, and this is what I've got to do, I've got to feel capable and confident. Do. Hey, you're okay, man. You better answer. We don't know who it is. I'm over here. I got to do this thing, but I'd never do it until I feel capable and confident. And so what we've got to learn to do is we've got to learn to help our teams cross this divide. And here's how you cross the divide, is you have to use courage to get confidence and capable. You use courage to get confident and capable. So here's what I mean by that, okay? There is a very, very fine line between being a coward and being courageous. It's very important to understand. It's a very fine line. Here's what a coward is. A coward is when something happens and you just wet your pants. Being courageous is just knowing what to do with wet pants. That's all courageous is just knowing what to do with wet pants. The truth of it is what you do is that you use courage. Now here's what I've realized. Nobody likes the feeling of courage. Nobody likes it. It's scary. It's like, oh my gosh, is it going to happen? When we sat down to do this, I told Kathy Chapman at Ohio Healthcare Association, this was the end of February. No, get this right, because this is crazy what we did. This is the end of March. I told Kathy Chapman, drama-free teams in healthcare will be ready, Kathy, by May 2nd. When I'm there, May 2nd, we'll have a book for you, Kathy. Guess how much of this book I'd written? 0 is a true story. I did not know you could produce a book in 30 days. I wasn't sure. I thought it was possible, but now on the back end, now the month of April, we used a lot of courage. There were days in April where I was like, this is not going to happen. And I can't tell Kathy we're not going to do it. I don't know. Right? But I used courage. Now here's what's cool on the back end. Anybody here want to write a book in 30 days? I can show you how to do it. You absolutely can do it. I am totally confident. I am totally capable. I know exactly how you do it. But over here, like in March, I had wet pants. I had wet my pants, and we just used courage the whole way to get this. Now, here's what happens. Is you procrastinate because you don't feel confident. Your team procrastinates because they don't feel confident. Now, and it's always for a good reason. I don't care what the reason is. In your mind, it's always a good reason. But what we have to work to do is use this excuse buster and help people feel courage. Help people feel creative. Make sense? You help people transform their life like this, they will give you their heart. Anybody that you help transform their life, help them get their goals, help them overcome their struggles, help them deepen with their passions, help them get their goals. You do those things, they give you their life. Retention doesn't become an issue. I know there's a big thing on recruiting right now, and I know a lot of people have a lot of different great creative ideas, but listen, if you don't retain them, and you just burn through them, and you just eat your young, and you just allow your managers to burn through people, you can recruit all day long. You got a big back door that people are just running out from. Make sense? So we want to work to get their heart. Was this helpful right here? So let's just take a minute and work this out. Okay. What's one thing that you need to get done? So just take out a piece of paper and just think of one thing that you haven't done, one thing that you're procrastinating on. Okay, because we're always procrastinating about something. Now here's what's amazing. I have started to use procrastination as productivity. And this is what's amazing. Every morning when I get up, one thing, and I've only been doing, I'm going to write a book on this, but I've only been doing this for about 45 days. So every morning when I get up, I ask myself, this is part of my devotional time, I ask myself this question. I say, Dennis, what's one thing you're procrastinating on right now? And here's what's interesting. For the last 45 days, I always come up with an answer. I always have an answer for myself. There's never been a day where I go, yeah, I'm not procrastinating on anything. It's amazing. So I go, okay, what are you procrastinating on? So when I got up this morning, I was like, okay, what are you procrastinating on? And I was like, I have not had a conversation with my 21-year-old about the Miata and when he's going to get in for service. I've been thinking about it, and I just kind of put it off. And so I just put on my to-do list, one of the things I'm doing today is having a conversation with my 21-year-old about the car. And I use whatever I'm procrastinating on as a priority. Sunday on my day off when I got up, I was like, Dennis, what are you procrastinating on? And I was like, man, there is this cupboard above the refrigerator that every time I look at it, it's like, oh, I don't want it. I'm going to do that today. I'm going to get that done. And I haven't told anybody I'm doing this, but about 2 weeks ago, one of my team members came up to me and they said, Dennis, you have just been more productive in the last month or so. He said, what's going on? He says, I can tell you're just more focused. He says, you're laser focused the last couple weeks for sure. And I was like, well, I said, I think it's because I'm using procrastination. So let's just take a minute, take out a piece of paper. What are you procrastinating on that you need to do? And just go through this scenario, even though, because you probably have your favorite excuse, right? You don't have enough time. So give me an example. What's something somebody's procrastinating on? Yes, ma'am. What's one thing? Tell us since you raise your hand. Or you can make something up, lie to us. We won't know.
Because
Okay, so you're procrastinating. Okay, so in your favorite excuse is? Okay, so even though I don't know, how can I still complete the agenda? Right, okay, so write 4 things down that you can do. So everybody do that same exercise and write 4 things down, 5 things down. Just take a minute. Give you a process to work through. Whatever 4 things come to your mind. You're ridiculously in charge of you, whatever you're going to do. Even though, whatever your favorite excuse, how can you still, whatever you're procrastinating on? Take about 2 minutes, come up with an answer, some answers. Awesome, awesome, have a seat. So, helpful, not helpful, helpful exercise, yes or no? Yeah? Okay, so give me some feedback. How was it helpful? Those of you that said it was helpful, what was helpful about it? People don't argue with their own data. People don't argue with their own data, which means you've got to get your team to say it. Did anybody here feel like you got a little bit more clarity on like, okay, here's an action plan, here's an action step? Feel like it? Let me ask you, did you walk away feeling more confident after doing the exercise? You're like, hey, it is possible. Hey, there is a strategy. Now watch this. I have stopped saying this phrase. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so busy. What does that mean? What does it mean? It means nothing. It's like, hey, have you been busy? I'm like, yeah, not busy at all. I just decided to stop being busy. I started to be peacefully productive. I started to be like, focused and intentional. I started to get like a lot of stuff done, but I stopped being busy. Because here's what I found. I would go, I'm busy. And I would whip myself into an emotional frenzy that meant nothing. And I was not productive. And I didn't feel confident. And I increased my procrastination. So what about this side? What kind of came out of doing that exercise? What about you? What did you come up with?
The same thing is that when you talk about it or write it down.
Right? You have a plan. Right, you're more intentional. All of a sudden you're more confident. You're more clear. You're more clear. Right, watch this. I tell people all the time that if you have not written it down, you have not thought about it. If you have not written it down, you have not thought about it. You do your best thinking on paper. And when you don't write it down, things get a jumbled mess inside of your brain. Make sense? You don't do your best, you do your best thinking on paper. So if you haven't written it, you haven't really thought about it enough. So here's my suggestion. If you want to take the procrastination challenge, how many people say, I'll take the procrastination challenge? And I will ask myself every day when I get up in the morning, what am I procrastinating on today? And then whatever pops into your brain, you just put it on your calendar to do. Here's what's amazing. Maybe it'll be different for you, but literally in the last 45 days, there has not been a day I've gotten up where I go, yeah, I'm not procrastinating about anything. I always find something. And so I'm using it as my friend. So we talked about the iceberg here, that the only thing that you can see is behavior. Now, this is very important to understand, is that all drama, we want great outcomes, and so we got this big triangle that's stopping our outcomes called drama, right? We're blaming and we're victiming. All drama is a tragic. Everybody say tragic. No, say it like this. Say tragic. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Tragic. 1, 2, 3. Tragic. Okay. It is a tragic expression. You guys are a great crowd. I love you all. You guys need to come with me more often, all right? Should have came to Ohio. They weren't that expressive. Okay? All drama is a tragic expression of an unmet need. All drama is a tragic expression of an unmet need. So when somebody is in drama, You know what a great question to ask them? Yeah, what do you need? Right? They come to you and they're complaining. Blah, 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 blah. I go, hey, great. What do you need? You go, blah, blah, blah. No, no, no. What do you need? Now listen, when people are in high drama, sometimes you have to ask the same question 4 or 5 times. And when you ask a question, you always get an answer to the question you're asking. It's like, what do you need? What do you need? And then sometimes they go, well, I need so-and-so to apologize. You go, great. Here's a question. She is ridiculously in charge of herself. You are ridiculously in charge of you. She might never apologize. Can you live with that? Yes or no? Because most drama, here's where it occurs, between the gap between expectation and reality. That's where the drama lies. Here's the expectation, and here's the reality. Now, I am not saying go around and lower your expectations. That is not what I'm saying. But you just want to keep moving the reality closer to the expectation. The shorter the gap, the shorter the drama. Make sense? Now, I will tell you there is a place where everybody does everything they're supposed to do. Nobody procrastinates. Nobody makes excuses. No leaders make excuses. There is a place where that happens. It's called Mars. Okay? That is called Mars. All right? There is a place, though. It does. Okay? So one thing that helps me keep out of my own personal drama is I always ask myself, wow, I wonder what kind of need they're trying to get met. You keep this curiosity about yourself, keeps you out of drama. Sometimes I wonder, wow, how can a 40-year-old educated, college-educated person act like a 3-year-old? Wow, crazy. She threw down her hair. That nurse threw her hair on the ground, screaming, bald-headed, and she's a college-educated lady. What's going, wow, I'm curious, right? Because watch this. All behavior is need-driven. It is. GPS, need-driven. All of it is. Now, it's a tragic expression of an unmet need. So when they don't know how to get the need met in a healthy way, they go into drama. There are 3 questions that you need to go back and answer with your team. And this would be a fantastic 5 of Hearts conversation. This is something that I facilitate with teams all the time, and I want you to think about it. These 3 questions create culture. These 3 things define your culture. Let me say it that way, not create it, because your culture is there. It's there. But these 3 things will define your culture. First of all, as a leader, what do I need from my team? And be very clear with your team. And write it down. You don't just tell them. And have them write it down. And you 5 of Heart them on, this is what I need from you. And then I would want to know, what does my team need from me? Now, before you go all codependent and try to rescue and try to meet everybody's needs, I'm not saying you walk around trying to meet all these needs. But what you need to be able to do is have a needs negotiation conversation. You want to continue to have conflict around needs negotiation. Conversation, dialogue. This is what I need, this is what you need. And then the third question is, how do we handle conflict? The answer to those 3 questions define your culture. They tell the story on your culture. One great thing that just a best practice that you could go back and do, one of our clients in Southern California, we facilitated a dialogue where we said, okay, what are the rules for our meetings? And they actually came up with their own rules. I didn't make the rules up. Now, I 5 of Hearted them. I knew where I wanted it to go. I knew the best practices. But the cool thing is they came up with their own language. So they came up with stuff like, hey, no meeting after the meeting. You know what meeting after the meeting is, right? It's like we're in a group and we all decide, and then 10 minutes later we're all done, and I take somebody beside and go, that's a dumb idea. I know we should. What are we doing that for? Why? Right? And I just burned 30 minutes of man hours, right? When I could have, like, in the meeting, just, hey, no meeting outside of the meeting. And they had another rule. It's like, hey, if you don't say something, we think you don't agree. To, like, push dialogue. And they came up with, like, own your own stuff, which means nobody can triangulate or try to, like, protect somebody or It's like, you're mad, own you're mad. You're mad. It's okay. Be mad. We're great. And so they came up with this language, and here's they've had such productive meetings since then, and they just keep it on a wall in their meeting room. And they go, hey, let's look at remember our rules. Boom, boom, they had like 5 rules. Because I think meetings should be like movies. Right? What's a great thing about a movie? You don't know how it's going to end, right? Why don't you make your meetings like that? Hey, we're going to talk about this, and I don't know what the answer is, and we're going to have a dialogue, and we're going to come up with a solution, and it could work or not work. It could crash or burn. I don't know what's going to happen. Another thing that you could do with your meetings is play level 10. Level 10 with your meetings. Here's another best practice for meetings, is define with your team what a level 10 meeting is, okay? Level 10, whatever that is. A level 10 being like, this is the greatest meeting ever, and define what it is. And at the end of every meeting, have everybody rate what the meeting was. Say, hey, all right, so let's go around. You rate the meeting. 6, 7, 5, 8. Well, hey, what would have made it a 10? What would we have to do? If you do a level 10 coaching with your meeting, everybody comes to the meeting actually pulling for the meeting. They come in going, oh my gosh, this could be a level 10 day. We don't know, this could be a level, we've never seen a level 10 meeting ever before. What would that be like? And you get them pulling for the meetings. Helpful, not helpful? A couple best practices. All of your coaching is down here. If you can shape this, you change this. If you shape thinking, values, beliefs, behavior begins to change. Your goal is to go after this. Now, you can play the management game, command and demand, salute, stay mute, try to force compliance, force behavior. Not saying you shouldn't have rules and handbooks, but this is the real goal. Because if I get your heart, your hand comes with it. My goal is to get your heart. And when you give me something of this, it's like precious gold. Make sense? Good or good? Okay. How many people can go back and play 5 of Hearts with your team? Yep, go back, 5 of Hearts, do likewise. It's important to understand this, the care, conflict, clarity. Now, here's what's interesting about accountability. We say funny things, I think, sometimes, and we say things like, I'm going to hold you accountable. Ever said that? Got to hold my team more accountable. Okay, let's talk about this for a minute. If I am ridiculously in charge of me, guess what the one thing you cannot do? You can't hold me accountable, absolutely. You can't at all. Because you know what? I'm going to do what I'm going to do. So I have a nutrition coach. Talked to him 2 weeks ago. He said, Dennis, part of one of my behaviors and one of my goals I'm working on is only drinking calorie-free drinks. You know how many calorie-free drinks there are? Very few. Let's just say it that way, right? After coffee, tea, water, you can go soda water. It starts to really limit your choices, right? But I'm on this habit. And the reality is I haven't done this habit. And so Jason, he said, I need to hold you more accountable. And so last night, we're up in the lounge, my wife and I, having a glass of wine. And I said, take this, accountability coach. Take this, Jason. Yeah, take this. Hold me accountable. Here's the deal. Accountability is not something top down. It's something bottom up. Accountability is the ability to give an account, which means accountability is a gift your team gives you. It's not something you can demand. Now, what you can do with your team, and this is what Jason does with me all the time, is I have my conversation with him, and I talk about me drinking wine and eating cheese and doing some of this stuff maybe I, at the end of the day, don't want the outcome for. What he always does is he throws my vision back at me. He says, hey, Dennis, he said, I don't understand. He said, I thought you wanted to be 170 pounds. He just keeps throwing that vision, keeps throwing that goal, keeps throwing that passion back at me, and you know what it does? It motivates me. Because you think about that word motivation. Do you realize you can't really motivate anybody? People do things for their own reasons. But what you can do is you can find somebody's motive, their GPS, and keep throwing their motive back at them. And that's why you want to find the GPS. And that's why you want to have other people know your GPS to help you and throw it back at you. Make sense? So accountability is a gift somebody gives you. So what we teach leaders, and you can go back and teach your team this, is teach them to close the open loops. How often does this happen? It's like you agree that somebody's going to do something, and then a day later you're going, okay, I haven't heard from them. Did they do that? I don't know. Has that ever happened to anybody? Like plays around in your brain? So we teach people to close open loops for other people, which means you make an agreement, because you really can't manage people. You can just manage the agreements you have between each other. That's what you manage, is you manage agreements. You don't manage people. It's like, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, this is our agreement. I'm going to manage this agreement that we have. So you manage the agreements we make. But you teach them to close open loops, which means if I ever have to come back and say, hey, Pamela, where are you at on that? That should be a clue for Pamela that she's not being very accountable. That it's Pamela's job to come and give me an account, not my job as a leader to walk the chain. Now, this is very adult-to-adult behavior, okay? Now, some of you are not ready for this level of interaction with your team. Some of you are. So I'm not saying caution, don't throw caution to the wind. Okay, well, I'm not ever going to walk the chain ever again. There are team members that aren't ready for this, okay? So I don't want you to go back and create a mess. But that's the goal. The goal is for all of your relationships to be that way, where we have adult, make sense? Adult-to-adult conversation. So that's a good way to kind of look at accountability. Then we went through the see it, own it, solve it. Does anybody have any questions on see it, own it, solve it? No? How many people are going to take my challenge to go do the blind spot eliminator? Okay, you have my email, info@dennis@leadershipprocess.com. Way to go. We went through the drama-free matrix. How many people are going to go back and stop asking why and start using this framework? Now, here's a key change management technique. I don't think you should ever ask why, but I think you should always share your why. Always, always share your why. And when you ever have pushback with a how, does that ever happen? It's like, it's like, hey, we need to make this change. And you go, and then people walk out, well, I still ain't going to change. Why we always got to change around here? Why things always got to be different, right? So when I get that kind of comments, I realize that people haven't bought the why. See, when I buy your why, I'll go do your how. But if I ever get pushed back with the how, it's because the why is not clear enough. And just because you tell the why does not mean they understand the why. Remember, people don't argue with their own data. Why do I have you continue to get up and share? Ma'am, are you leaving? Because I'm going to share with you how to do the gold. I really am. I'm coming to it. Yeah. Yeah, if you can give me like 10 minutes, because I'm going just for you. All right? But I'm not trying to make you stay. You're ridiculously in charge of you. You do what you want to do. Okay? Okay. So it's my secret trick to keep people in the meeting. I'm going to hold you hostage. Okay, so what or how plus an action. How many people go back and do the GPS framework with some of your team members? That would be very, very helpful. This is the get it, want it capacity, the framework. So let me go through and show with you how to do the goals if you're ready to go. And we're almost done. Okay? If I am in the kitchen and I see these three letters combined together, what do they stand for? Teaspoon. Is that how you do it, or TSP? I'm like all my stuff, man. I got GPA, I got everything. TSP. If I see this in the kitchen, what does it stand for? Teaspoon. That's the picture I want you to think of, okay? It's a teaspoon. It's not a tablespoon, it's not a pint, it's not a quart, it's not a gallon, it's not a dump truck. It is a teaspoon, Okay? Here's what teaspoon stands for. It stands for truthful. So I walk into every situation, every person, and I try to find something truthful. Can't be a lie. Can't make it up. Okay? Where's the goal? Where's the goal? It's got to be truthful. And it's got to be specific. And the more specific, the better. And then it's got to be positive. Now, remember it's teaspoon, which means it's not a long conversation. It's a short conversation. And in fact, the shorter the better. And in fact, the more precise, the better. So remember, the only thing that I can really see about people is their behavior. But remember, underneath the iceberg, what do we got? Right? We got how they think, their value, their beliefs. So I look at their behavior, and it tells me part of what's underneath the iceberg. And I learn to call this out. Because in here is really where all this gold is. Underneath here is where all the gold is. And then you learn to call it out. Now, I simply have a word stem that I use. Now you use whatever would be good for you. Okay, what I use is like, hey, what I appreciate. Because here's what's something cool about appreciation. When gold appreciates, what does it do? It goes up in value, right? Whatever you appreciate in your life goes up in value. People increase their value to you as you appreciate them, as you appreciate the gold. Truthful, and so I ask myself, what's truthful, specific, positive? And I just call it out. It's like, hey, what I really appreciate about you is just your attention to detail. That's awesome. Make sense? Here's what happens when you do that. People feel like you get them. You really get them. So I did this in a networking meeting a couple months ago. And I just noticed this one little thing about this lady. What was that in her communication, she was just really precise. And it's like, wow, just in our conversation, I really love how precise you are in your communication. And literally, this is where you really have to practice the golden rule and believe the best about people. Because literally, like a tear welled up in her eye. And it was almost like, I think she felt like I got her more than her husband did. Like, I could have sold her a bridge. I said, hey, there's this bridge over here, and where's your credit card? Right? Because it's like she felt like, okay, somebody got her. And all I did, and I only knew her for 5 minutes, but I just watched her behavior, and I listened to her words, and I just called it out. That's how you find the gold. So come up with a word stem that's yours. Some people say, hey, what's cool about you? What's great about you? What I love about you? Hey, what's awesome about you? You come up with your own word stem that works for you. It's got to be you. Got to make it authentic to you. Like for me, it works, appreciate, because that's just how I talk. So you make it work for you. But go around and practice TSP. That's the answer. Does that help? That's absolutely how you call it out. So I'll allow you to sneak out real quick, and this is how we'll do it, is like everybody to stand, find one person that you haven't talked to, and what's the one big takeaway from today? So find one person that you haven't, everybody stand, find one person that you haven't talked to, and what's one big takeaway? Awesome, awesome. Let's have a seat. They are dropping like flies, aren't they? Yeah, they are dropping like flies. We're only going to go a couple more minutes. Everybody have a seat. So what's the one thing you're going to do different? Going back to when you go back to your team, because I never ever want to leave the scene of a training without making a decision. Never ever want to leave the scene of a training without making a decision. So what's the one thing that you say, you know what, I'm going to go back and do this. This is the thing I'm going to go back. So what are you going to go back and do, Pamela?
Well, our group actually talked about not spending a lot of time and not accepting those things that you kind of let slip away.
Yeah.
Because then that becomes the standard, the norm.
Right. It becomes the new normal.
Right.
Yeah, and you want to continue
You want to continue to up that level. And here's what happens. Think about this. Your brain only goes to work on what it thinks is normal. And here's the tragedy that I see in healthcare and with us, is we start to expect drama. It is what it is, right? And then that becomes the new normal for us. And not to step back and go, you know what? No. No, there's a higher level. There's a higher normal. And because have you guys ever seen the survey? And I don't know who does these surveys. It's a crazy survey, right? Who would ever do this survey? But you ever heard about the fleas in a jar? You guys ever heard that story? The fleas in a jar? Yeah. I don't know who pays for this stuff, okay? But how it goes is there's fleas in a jar. They put thousands of fleas in a jar, and they put the lid on the jar, and the fleas kept jumping up, hitting their heads, hitting their heads, hitting their heads. After a couple of days, the fleas stopped jumping so high, and they stopped hitting their heads. So they only jumped there was like this much left with the lid. And they thought, man, that's really odd. They're not jumping all the way. And then a day later, they took the lid off. And guess what the fleas did? Stayed in the jar. Yeah, they stayed in the jar. And here's what I am passionate about. I am passionate about people not settling. We say things like, well, it's healthcare. Well, we're only paying CNAs, whatever, we pay them, right? We're only, right, well, we only, we're paying peanuts, so we just get a bunch of monkeys, or whatever phrases we use, and we just end up settling. And you know what? We have to up it. Think about this. We have to up our commitments and lower our obligations. And here's what I mean by that. Most of the stress in your life is when you have obligations that you're not totally committed to. Think about most of the stress in your life, isn't it when you made an obligation but you weren't really committed to it? Right? And then you're like, oh, why did I say I would do that? So I have just learned how can I up my commitments and not necessarily make so many obligations? And that'll keep you out of your own personal drama. So what about you? What was one thing you're going to go back and do different?
The goals that you've given us to explain and ask questions, not ask why.
Okay, so just here's the thing. Once you get my coaching questions toolkit, you'll see that there are 20 questions that all start with what or how. That's what you'll immediately notice. Now, once you know the framework, what or how, go play with it. Go have fun. Just go wild. Just remember what or how plus an action verb. And just go create your own. When I hear good questions, I write them down. I'm like, that's a great question. Make sense? And remember, questions create open loops inside of people's brains that demand an answer. You'll get them to think differently. What about you? What's one thing you're going to go do different?
Well, when I see drama, thinking about it being a net negative, what is it that I'm not meeting for them? And that's the reason.
Okay, yeah, but here's what you got to be very careful of. Not what need am I not meeting, because it's not your job to meet my needs. Watch this. As a leader, it is not your job to meet your team's needs. They have to get their needs met in a healthy way. Now, you can assist them. You can have a conversation. You can have a needs negotiation, but it's not necessarily your job. Just help them get clear on what they need. And then see if you can modulate, modify. Because sometimes you can't. And it's like, wow, I'm sorry, it's just not going to be met. It's like, I don't want to work nights at all, ever. Well, in this position. Well, it's like, hey, in this position, sometimes you have to work nights. Can you live with it? I can't meet that need. I'm not going to work all the nights, right? Yeah. Well, what about you? What's one thing you're going to do different?
To stop being the rescuer and maybe to ask the right questions to empower them to get the correct answer.
Awesome. So a key question that people use to get out of rescue is, what are you going to do about that problem you have? Almost, especially if you are a classical rescue, burn that question on your forehead. Just tattoo it. Just tattoo it. It's like, here's my question. Well, what's one thing you're going to do different?
I'm going to, and I used to do this a long time ago because this is what my mentor taught me, but always, when they bring a problem, have a solution.
Right.
But I kind of stopped doing that because, we get bogged down and everybody bringing the problems and try to fix everything. But I'm going to get back to, if you bring this problem, bring this solution.
Awesome. And then you could even get to the point of hey, just fix it yourself. Right? There are some things that you don't have to know about. I'm not saying everything, because if you're an administrator or DON, you're responsible for certain things, but I love it when my team fixes something and I didn't even know it was a problem. And 2 weeks later, they go, hey, do you know that was, really? I go, yeah, but don't, it's already fixed. I'm like, that's awesome. I didn't even know about it. So, but you?
Questioning them a little bit more, so they can come up with their own solution.
They can. That's what you have to believe. You have to believe they can. But you was takeaway. Don't. Awesome. Awesome. Because truly, they can solve their own problems. What about you, sir?
I'm going to let the individual know how much I appreciate them and I find out one, identifying one.
Yeah, TSP, TSP, TSP. What about you? What'd you come up with? Is the one takeaway? What are you going to do different? Ask the right questions. What you? Perfect. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Hey, thank you for telling the truth, huh? Don't you guys appreciate it? It's like, hey, told the truth. That's awesome. That is a neat little way to get people's hearts. What are you going to do different, Spencer?
I hope to be more proactive. I feel like I have a tendency to react, and but that's what a lot of our jobs are, is to react to problems. Maybe it's just, I guess, maybe.
Okay, awesome. Here is a 3-step process. Just thought about, let me give this to you really quick, that you can improve and learn from every situation. These 3 questions with your team, okay? You want to ask, hey, what's working? Or in this situation, what worked? Now, are you more creative when you're positive or negative? Positive, right? So part of your goal is to first get people in a positive place. You got to find something that's working. And sometimes when it really sucks and they go, this sucks, nothing's working, you go, hey, well, what could be working? Hey, what could be good about, right? There's always, so what's working, then what's not working, and then third, what are we going to do? Because watch this. You can have a losing situation that turns out to a learning situation. And if I learn from every situation, I never lose. So what's working, what's not working, what are we going to do? Make sense? It's a great staff feedback conversation. What's one thing you're going to do different? 2. Awesome. You're going to get my book. Just send us an email if you did it, and that'd be great. Well, ma'am, what are you going to do? Manage your procrastination. You absolutely have to send us an email if you're going to do that. We want to get some feedback. What you're going to find, something will always come into your mind, and then you just use that framework. And yes, sir, what are you going to do different? Bust excuses. Awesome. Sir, right there, what are you going to do different? Declutter your office. Yes. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. You going to free some futures? Got it. Okay. Awesome. Yes, ma'am. What are you going to do different? Ask questions. Okay. Yes, ma'am. TSP. Find their goal. Yes, ma'am. What are you going to do different? Look at accountability different. So what you want to do is you want to teach your team to close loops. It's like, hey, we make an agreement. I need you to come back to me and close that loop. But here's what we teach people, is teach them it's not a trust issue, it's a communication issue. And it's like, hey, I need you to help me. I need you to help me. This is an open loop in my brain. I need you to come to me. And you teach them it's not a trust issue. Because that's what will happen. People go, well, don't you trust me? No, it's help me. It's a communication issue. I can't have so many open loops in my brain. And sometimes, listen, I tell my team, I would rather, it's okay not to hit a goal. I just need to know. Some goals, we don't hit. Stuff comes up. But it's like I want to know on the front end, not the back end. Yes, sir, in the back. We found you back here. What's one thing you're going to do different? You're going to listen better. Okay, awesome. Ma'am? Ask the right questions. All right. What are you going to do different, ma'am? Ask questions. Oh my gosh, say that out loud.
I'm going to have my department head highlight the employees that they would rehire. I have a
Wow. And then
wide spectrum.
and then I would go and I would give them the GWC framework and start evaluating people through that. That would be powerful. We'd love to know the feedback on that. Yes, sir, what do you do different?
Reduce stress in my life, but why not overcome it?
Awesome. Awesome. Ma'am, what about you? What are you going to do different? Ma'am, what are you going to do different? Okay. What are you going to do different, Barbara?
Procrastinate.
You're going to procrastinate more or less? Okay. I don't care. It's your life. You know, you're in charge of you. That's awesome. That's awesome. You're going to, it would,
There's only 24 hours.
yes, ma'am. That's awesome. That's awesome. If you use that framework, it takes about 3 or 4 months, continue to use that framework, but you'll find they stop coming to you. They do. They just kept coming to you. Yes, ma'am. Look for the gold. The TSP. What are you going to do different?
Join Barbara and procrastinate so I can be more productive.
Yep, that's it. I'm procrastinating to be more productive, right? It's a procrastination priority.
Be intentional in giving the feedback and SOS, but also.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, great. So I would just like your help real quick. Rate the meeting on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being, wow, I am so glad I stayed and didn't go on the beach this morning. Or 1 being, gosh, I wish I was on the beach. We should have just went to the beach and just forgot this training. How would you rate it? How many people would give it a 7 or higher? 8 or higher? 9 or higher? Okay, awesome. So here's part of the gift that I need from everybody today, if you would, is I'd just like you to take one of these Ritz-Carlton papers, and this would help me. And here's what I would like, is I would like to know what's the key skill that your team needs to acquire? What's the key capacity and skill that your team needs to get better at? And then I'd just like you to turn it in. And then we will, I think we should call it a day. What do you think? I mean, do you guys want 3 or 4 more other frameworks, or are we done? You guys tell me. I am totally fine to keep going, but I feel like we have like overloaded. Do you guys feel overloaded? You're ready to go. Did everybody text drama free to get the coaching questions? Okay, so text drama free, you can get the coaching questions. But I do want to finish by just telling you thank you. Thank you for serving residents, serving families, being a blessing to people. It makes all the difference. So I wanted to say thank you. So if you just want to turn that in, we'll call it a day. If there's anything I can ever do to serve you, if you bring in speakers to your organization, I'd love to come and help serve you and do whatever I can to help you. So, awesome.